Sure that we are broadcasting live, and we'll get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled July 12th Commission meeting to order. I'm going to begin with a request for an approval of the agenda. I do have one amendment. If we could move item 18 under public hearings and ordinances to item 10. And Ms. Judy, if you'll remind me of that when we get to item 9, 2 hours from now, and I've forgotten, I would appreciate that. I have no further amendments or changes. So with that, do we have any questions from the commission to amend, or can I have a motion to adopt the published agenda with that amendment?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any questions on the amendment, on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any questions from the public on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We do want to acknowledge the absence of Commissioner Martin here. We hope he is back healthy soon. And with that, if you would please rise for the invocation, which will be delivered by Minister Joy Glanzer tonight, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Minister.
Thank you so much. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening with gratitude for all the blessings you have bestowed upon our city. And we come to you asking that you be with our elected officials this evening as they make decisions which affect our family and our community. Guide them and direct them, Lord, to do what's best for our city. Thank you for keeping us safe last week in the face of the storm. Thank you for our utility workers who made sure we had power and were prepared for the worst. There's no treasure on earth which matches the gift of your love and your grace. May we always remember that and be grateful for the light you shine upon us. So tonight, bless our commissioners, staff, attorney with wisdom and compassion as we vow to keep the faith and praise your holy name. In thy precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Minister. We appreciate that. And Chief, are you giving your presentation?
And Mr. Mayor, while he's making his way up front, just remind the commission this is a presentation. We'll be having time to discuss the acquisition of a Quint Apparatus as we go through our budget process, but it's a pretty sophisticated issue to make our way through. So Chief Buckner felt like it'd be a great idea to just get some information presented so the commission can start thinking about what their alternatives are as we move forward on this item.
Thank you, Mike. And while Chief is getting ready there, it seems to me in the past few meetings we've had a little bit of confusion, and I want to make sure that the public also understands when someone asks to make a presentation to the commission, we listen to the presentation and we may ask some follow-up questions, but we don't generally open up the floor for long conversations, public discussion. We just listen to the presentation. So we're going to follow that tradition, that precedent that we have set. Not to say you guys can't ask some questions tonight, but we will come back to this item later for a more in-depth conversation. Chief?
All right, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Come before you tonight regarding our Quinn Apparatus. As you know, it's been in the CIP for, I believe this FY22 is the 4th year. It's something that we put on the radar about 4 years ago as something that needed to be looked at somewhere down the road, and we're at that point we need to really take a hard look at it. So this presentation tonight is going to kind of outline what some alternatives are, what the options are as far as maintaining that level of service with the Quinn Apparatus, whether it be replacement, new, used, or other alternatives. So we'll go ahead and get started. We ask that you just receive the presentation this evening. Obviously, as the mayor said, we're going to talk some more about this during the budget process. Our current fleet includes a fire engine. As you see there in the picture, that's our newest piece of apparatus to our fleet. Our current Quint is a 1999, and that's the picture of that apparatus. Our tanker is the second newest member of our fleet. that was purchased back in 2016. Current brush truck is actually in the shop for service, so we took a picture of something, we robbed a picture of something that looked pretty close, except it's red, and ours are white. So, and then of course we have one command vehicle. Other types of fire apparatus, ladder trucks, and these are typically called, what you see in the picture is typically called a ladder or tower truck. The main difference between a Quint and a tower truck is that platform you see on the front of that ladder. Instead of just climbing up there and hanging off the end or locking in off the end of the ladder, you guys actually have a platform to stand on. Next type of fire truck that used in fire service is called a heavy rescue truck. You see those on major vehicle accidents that involve heavy pieces of machinery, multi-vehicle accidents where there may be extensive extrication. There's a lot of things on those trucks, and I won't even go into all those details, but there's a lot of specialty equipment on those trucks, some of which we have, but not on that scale. So what is a Quint? It's a quintuple fire apparatus. It has 5 functions. Provides a fire pump, a water tank, fire hoses, an aerial device, and ground ladders. It allows us to supply fire streams, initial and continuing water supply once we arrive on scene. Provides personnel with elevated access to areas of height. It also provides us the opportunity to provide elevated master stream operations. We'll show you some pictures of that shortly. The flexibility of this apparatus is something that makes it really special. This truck can be used as a fire engine or as an aerial apparatus. So it's something that is becoming very, very prevalent throughout the fire service. So here's a Quinn apparatus, and I talked about the pictures. Here's some of the pictures. So remember, this apparatus can do multiple functions. This is a picture of a Quinn apparatus that is set up strictly as an engine, a fire engine on this fire scene. As you can see, the ladder portion is not elevated. So this truck is functioning at this fire scene as strictly a pumper. This picture, that ladder is elevated, and you can see it appears that it's affecting rescue of firefighters from a building that is no longer safe to fight fire in. So in other words, they use that ladder to get those firefighters down from that environment that they were in before that fire erupted as it did. In this picture, you see it's just strictly being used as an elevated master stream. There's nobody on that ladder. That ladder is essentially reaching the seat of the fire that you would not otherwise be able to reach with hose lines or personnel. It appears that there's some maybe chain link fence or some kind of fencing that's obstructing the access to that fire. So this is something that a Quinn allows us to do, is to get elevated streams and obtain that reach that we may need that we wouldn't otherwise be able to obtain. Some additional pictures. This is where a Quint is actually working on a fire scene where supplying just standard 24-foot extension ladders would be unsafe. As you can see, that structure looks like the roof will fall at any moment. So by allowing firefighters to get up there and do their work without actually getting on the roof, that's a safety thing for firefighters. So this one is a 3-story building that a Quint's operating at, and it's kind of difficult to see, but essentially what the Quint has done here, they've allowed firefighters to quickly access the roof of that structure. You see ground ladders right in the 3rd floor window. That's a 24-foot extension ladder. That's the tallest ladder we have on our trucks in Newberry. As you can see, that Quint went well above that 24-foot extension ladder. This is another picture where a Quint is actually doing both functions. This truck is actually pumping water as a fire engine, and it's also allowing elevated rescue or access to an upper floor of a residential structure. So aerial apparatus deployment throughout the county is on this map. Everywhere you see a red check mark is where there's an aerial device within the county. The city of Gainesville has 4, ACFR has 1, and Newberry has 1. GFR, the two of the ones that they have are those ladder tower platforms with the platform on the top of the ladder. That's Station 1 and Station 2. Our closest Quint, other than Newberry's closest one that's not ours, which is in Fort Clark Boulevard, is 11.5 miles away. It's an 18-minute drive time. Current Quint specifications. Our current Quint today is 22 years old. It's a 1999. It was manufactured by Southern Coach Corporation out of Ocala. It has a Spartan chassis. The cab and the body are manufactured by Southern Coach. Aerial devices, Aerial Innovations. The motor is a Cummins motor. Transmission is an Allison transmission. And it's a 1250 GPM fire pump. So those are the specifications of our current Quint. Some of the challenges that we're seeing as this truck is aged is well, let me back up. The NFPA, with the truck being 22 years old, NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Association, they indicate that all frontline fire apparatus, once it gets to 15 years old, that apparatus should be placed in reserve status. Ours is 22 years old. That is a frontline fire apparatus. Those 5 pieces of apparatus that the city of Newberry owns, every one of those is a frontline fire apparatus that performs a different function. So we're at 22 years old. NFPA also recommends that they be removed from reserve status and be replaced, in other words, taken out of service between 20 and 25 years of age. Just as a note, if the commission decides to go with the purchase of a new Quint somewhere down the road, today's numbers are 14, 18 months, somewhere in that time frame from the date the truck's ordered till the date it's delivered. Things are just that far behind. Current Quint does not meet NFPA 1911 Annex D, which was in the backup material for the commission. One thing I will add, there was a typo in there. We were not one of 5, we're one of 6 apparatus, aerial apparatus within the county. I think my agenda summary stated one of 5, so it is one of 6. Southern Coach, the company that made our truck back in 1999, they're out of business. It creates challenges with cab and body parts because they're one-off items. They're not laying on a shelf somewhere. You can't, go to LKQ and get a door for one of our trucks. We can't call E1 and say, hey, do you have a door this size? It's, hey, can you make us a door? So that's some of the problems. The biggest issue with the truck is the aerial. Aerial Innovations is out of business as well. It's making it very difficult to find repair and replacement parts. We had the truck out of service about 2.5 years ago. It was out of service for over 2 months waiting on a track that had come from out west somewhere. It took some doing to find it. So bear that in mind when we're having a discussion, in the future about the Quint itself. The repair and replacement parts are not necessarily readily available for the entire truck. Cummins motor, Allison transmission, waterless pump, you get those all done. All right, so here's our alternatives that we came up with. Refurbish our existing Quinn apparatus, purchase a new Quinn apparatus, purchase a 10-year-old or newer Quinn apparatus and trade in or sell our existing Quint, or purchase a 10-year-old or less fire engine and trade in or sell our existing Quint. So refurbishing our existing Quint, the aerial that's up right there, that's the Aerial Innovations part of that truck, and that's one of the biggest issues we have right now. So replace the aerial, replace existing aerial with new, refurbish the chassis and cab to meet the current NFPA standards, overhaul the pump. It's going to extend the life of the apparatus to about 30 years, which is going to be 8 years from now. That estimated cost is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of $575,000. $275 for the new aerial, just the aerial portion that sits on the truck, the parts you see extended right there. What you don't see is the turntable that's on the back of the truck that actually operates that. But then another $350,000 from front to back, top to bottom on the refurb of the truck. So the pros and cons of that option: we still maintain a high level of service with pumping and ladder capabilities. It's lower cost than the purchase of a new truck. Existing chassis and cab are in good condition. Part of your backup material, we had E1 come up and evaluate the truck. They indicate the truck's been well maintained. So it's not really a maintenance issue. It's truck's in decent shape for its age. So the cons to this, actually I shouldn't say it's lower cost than purchase new. Let me look at something real quick.
Initial.
About the same cost to purchase new. So the large investment, does the city want to make a large investment on a 22-year-old truck? Yeah, that's something we need to think about. E1 is our closest dealer that can do those kinds of repairs and refurbishment, and there's a letter in your backup material that indicates that they're not really interested in doing it. And again, that'll be something, if that's the direction the commission gives somewhere down the road, that's what we want to try and do, then we'll broach that conversation with a couple different manufacturers again. But the manufacturer of the original truck is out of business. So option number two, alternative number two, is purchase a new Quint and trade in or sell the existing Quint. Trade in or sell the existing Quint, cost is going to be about $800,000, less about a $25,000 trade-in value on our truck. Annex D, NFPA Annex D, which is again part of your backup documentation, it talks specifically in there about trade-in value of vehicle. And essentially, once you get past, I believe it was a 12-year mark, your trade-in value starts plummeting. And we're obviously 10 years beyond that. So the pros of a new Quint: high-level service with pumping and ladder capabilities, just like alternative one. We anticipate a 25 to 30-year equipment lifespan. The new truck would be manufactured and equipped to the current NFPA 1911 standards. Again, this is tied for the most costly alternative with the first option. Alternative three, used Quint. Purchase a used Quint, trade in to sell an existing Quint. Estimated cost is about $275,000. There's $275,000 less the trade-in, and then there's about a $25,000 cost to recertify the truck, the ladder, the pump, fix any minor things that may be issues with a 10-year-old fire apparatus. So just some pictures of kind of what's out there. There's a 2010 E1 Teleboom. It's 50 foot. Our current Quint is 55 foot. It only has 8,100 miles on it, about just a shade over 400 hours. It's $250,000. That's an 11-year-old truck as of today. There's a 2019 Ferrera that's a 77 foot. They want $810,000 for that. So that just kind of gives you the broad range of, when you start looking at these things, it's not like, well, it's just this price range, or we know it's going to be within $100,000 of each other. That's just not the case. So pros and cons for a used Quint: we're still going to be able to maintain a high level of service with both the pumping and the aerial capabilities. It's the lowest cost alternative to maintain the current level of service, which is aerial and ladder ladder and pumping capabilities. The apparatus, if we get a 10 or 11-year-old truck, the likelihood of it meeting the current NFPA standards are very slim, because the standards change fairly regularly. But again, that's where that $25,000 comes in that you saw on the previous slide. And of course, it's 11 years old already. We're looking at 19-year lifespan out of it after we receive it. So in 19 years, we'll be having this conversation again. So alternative 4, me either. But purchase used fire engine, this is alternative 4, so this is something where it's an option, but it does, I want you to understand, it does reduce the level of service that we currently provide. So purchase a used fire engine, trade in or sell our existing Quint, about $175,000. And again, we're talking about $25,000 to repaint a red fire truck white and go through the pump, you know, make sure all the valves are operating properly, do new seals in the valves, anything motor and transmission wise, brakes, all that kind of stuff. So those are the 4 options, and the pros is the pros of getting a new fire engine. It's the least costly alternative that we have. The cons are it does reduce the level of service. We go from having the capability of providing pumping and aerial capabilities, now we just provide pumping capabilities. So that is a major service level reduction. Again, buy a 10-year-old engine just like a 10-year-old Quint, it's not going to meet current NFPA standards. Shorter expected equipment lifespan. It's not going to last 30 years like a new one should. Okay, so here's the cost analysis. So the cost analysis, you can see year 1, that's the day we purchase the vehicle. And then your 4 alternatives are across the top. So year 11, so year 1 is pretty self-explanatory. You purchase, whatever the commission directs us to the route that the commission decides to go down. Then year 11 is essentially that you're at 10 years. You got 10 years into the vehicle. So if we replace the aerial on our existing Quint, 10 years from now we're in the market for a used Quint again, because our truck is now over 30 years old if we wait 10 years. So we're right back in the market of trying to figure out what we're going to do with a Quint. Major maintenance at year 11 in option 2, which is option 2. Let me back up just a second. Purchase a used Quint, trade existing Quint, and major maintenance. That gets us to year 1, $575, so that's what it's going to cost to replace the aerial on our Quint. At year 10, we're going to purchase a used Quint, trade in the existing Quint, and then we're going to do the major maintenance on the one we just purchased. So that puts us at about $275 in year 11 from now. Year 21 from now be the same thing, because every year you're buying a 10-year-old truck, and you're just rolling those years. So when you get to that next 10 years, you're talking about time to get rid of it, time to do something else. So that total comes to about $1.125 million over that 30-year lifespan, total 30-year lifespan. The annualized cost, which we have the VERF, so the annualized VERF cost would be about $53,750. Option 2, purchase a new Quint, trade in the existing. At year 11, 10 years from now, we do some major maintenance if needed. And then at year 20, we do a major refurbishment. So that cost, year 1, is $775,000. Year 11, we don't do anything to it. Year 20, year 21, we've got $350,000 potentially we need to put into that truck to do any major refurbishments. So again, it works out to $1.125 million for the 30-year annual cost. The annualized cost is about $53,750 in the VERF. So option 3, alternative 3, is purchase used Quint, trade in existing Quint. So year 1, we purchase a used Quint, we trade in ours or sell ours outright. 10 years from now, we're either purchasing a used one, we're trading ours in, or we're talking new again, or we're talking whatever we're talking. Year 20, doing the same thing. So year 1, year 2, and year 20 are all $275,000. Total cost is $825,000, and you annualize that out annually, it's $39,417. So option 4, options 1 through 3 leave us with the same service level that we currently have. Option 4 reduces our service level. We're going to purchase a used engine, trade in our existing Quint. Year 11, 10 years from now, we're going to be purchasing a used engine again. Again, trading in the one we have at that point. Year 21, we're doing the same thing. So year 1, the cost is $175,000. Year 11, $175,000. Year 21, $175,000. Total cost over that same time period is $525,000 with an annualized cost to the berth of $25,000. So that kind of gives you the cost analysis breakdown, and you can see it essentially in 10-year increments with the thought of, if we're doing the NFPA recommendations on our apparatus, that gets us in that time frame, staying within NFPA recommendations. Okay, so again, we're just asking that you just receive the presentation this evening. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Remembering that we're going to have another time to go in depth, but it's important if you have any clarification questions so that you can take into your own deliberations. This is what we're looking for tonight. So if you understood everything, you just need time to process it. If there's something you need to clarify, Commissioner Mazon, you got it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. How long you been doing this?
27 years.
27 years. So one thing I have not heard you present is your opinion. What is your professional opinion?
The opinion, my professional opinion is the city of Newberry has grown. The city of Newberry, we currently have some large structures. As you saw in some of those pictures, it wasn't just 5 and 6 and 10-story buildings that we were looking at where these devices are used. We have some churches that are extremely large. We have city facilities, Easton, that are very large. We have new development that has created commercial with living space above it, elevated rescue. My professional opinion is the city of Newberry needs a Quint, and they're going to continue to need a Quint as the city continues to grow. I'm just going to tell one story. Probably 2.5 years ago, I received a phone call from Argos indicating that they were going to have to shut down because they had an elevator that they're required by their governing agency to maintain an operable condition at all times. They were quite some time, I want to say it was close to a month, from being able to have that repaired. They got with us, we took our Quint out there, we said, hey, let's set it up, let's see if we can reach this one platform. We were able to reach it safely. We did a letter for them, they got to stay open. So that's just one story. There's several more. We have a half a block of downtown Newberry that happened on my shift some 20 years ago probably that is still standing today because of that Quint. So my professional opinion is Newberry's going to need they need a Quint, and they're going to continue to need a Quint.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth.
Is this covered by the vehicle replacement program we've got in place?
Yes, sir. All those annualized numbers that you saw on that chart, those would be the annual payments to the vehicle and equipment, the VERF, the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund. That would be the estimated annual payment to that VERF.
So we have the money to do that?
No. Well,
Program is too new, I think.
essentially, what we've been doing in the fire department, and I think everybody else, when we buy a new vehicle, that's when we start making the payments to the VERF. So once we purchased our new tanker, once we purchased the new command vehicle and also the new engine, you saw our VERF payments go up in our budget, but that was because of that annualized payment.
Any other, I'm not trying to rush us along, guys, but it's 7:30 and we're on item 1. So I want to make sure any other clarification questions? Okay. Chief, we appreciate it. That was an excellent presentation, and I finally know why the Quint is called the Quint. I always love to learn new things.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, your commission likes to hear from you, and we'll try to make you not have to wait all the way to the end of the night in order to let us know about things that are going on. So they set aside public announcements at the beginning. If you just need to let us know about something that's going on, you have a 2-minute opportunity to do so. If you would like to talk to the commission about something more controversial, you have a 5-minute period of time at the end of the meeting if you'd like to wait till then. Do we have any public announcements? Seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent. Are we in deliberations? Come on down. And Amy, if you got the 2 minutes on the clock there, that red light will be on, and then it'll go to yellow when you have 30 seconds left. And don't forget to introduce yourself to us.
Good afternoon, my name is Keith Ross, my wife is Shalon Ross. We actually, your property. At that time, I was told, this was about in 2016, 15, 16, I was told that it wasn't necessary to have a permit to do anything on my property at that time. We have a event this weekend scheduled on the 17th. It will include a Crawfish Dinner. Those tickets have been sold. We attempted to sell about 50, so we're expecting at least 50 guests for that. If that's contingent upon we selling all of the tickets. In addition, there may be some overflow, but we expect no more than 70 people on the property. We were told this past week that we cannot have the event, which was alarming. Of course, it's too late to kind of cancel things. Crawfish has already been shipped. It's the end of crawfish season. The thing is, we're just trying to have an event. I had been told by this committee years ago that it was okay to do that without a permit. And now, unfortunately, we've been told that we need a permit for that event.
Also, we're not having any alcohol products.
Can you give your name, ma'am?
Oh,
Sorry.
Shabani Ross.
Just for the record.
We're not having any alcohol beverage on the property. So,
And in addition, with my company, and I say my company, let me explain, Farmers Insurance, they will be involved as well. We're going to be giving away about 200 book bags for kids that's coming out this weekend also. In addition, and I think what's happening is my property, we're speaking of, years ago, used to have this major event on the Easter.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but for some reason our light's not working and we're just about out of time. So just go ahead and finish up that.
All right, that event used to house about 2,000 people. That is not the event we're trying to have this weekend. This is going to be family and friends, probably 50 to 70 at the best.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Any other public comment? Public announcements? Hearing none. Now we'll move on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published? I have a motion. Do I hear a second? I have a second. Motion from Commissioner Clark, second from Commissioner Farnsworth. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will take us to our first public hearing ordinances, which is a quasi-judicial ordinance. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have changed our quasi-judicial just a little bit. I'm going to go through the procedure. For every other quasi-judicial that is linked to that one, we're not going to go through the procedure again. So if you are here to speak to items 6, 7, or 8, when I ask you to stand up and swear in, if you're here to talk to any of those, stand up at that one time. And our first 6, 7, 8 are all together. And when we're in quasi-judicial, this board moves from a legislative board to a judicial board. So the rules change a little bit. They can only adhere to certain rules. The primary rule is that they can only listen to substantial and competent evidence when the board makes a decision, and we have to state the following, quote, all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence, and the giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. In a minute, I'm going to go through the procedure that will follow tonight, but I'm going to ask the attorney if you would please read into the record for us ordinance 2021-11/CPA 21-04.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment of the economic development overlay area as designated on the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, subparagraph 2 and subparagraph 3 of Florida statutes, and in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion at the appropriate time will be to pass ordinance number 2021-11 as read by title only.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
If you're here to speak to any of those 6, 7, or 8 on tonight's published agenda, would you please rise, and I'm going to ask our clerk to please swear you in.
Brian Thomas.
Do you hereby swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And let's do ex parte. Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Maison?
None.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, tonight when we're in quasi judicial, we're going to hear from the staff first for an overview, then we're going to hear from the applicant with no time limit. Then we will hear from our staff again along with their recommendation. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status for any of these, so that's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on that agenda item will have 3 minutes to do so. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to cross-examine, staff will have an opportunity to cross-examine, then members of the decision-making body through the chair can ask questions of the staff or the applicant or any of the participants. Then we'll hear final arguments. The city attorney will advise decision-making bodies applicable law. We'll deliberate. After deliberations, we'll make a motion. After a motion, we'll vote. That's the procedure we're going to follow for 6, 7, and 8. Staff, give us an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading of comprehensive plan amendment that would allow for the expansion of the current economic development overlay area down by Champions Park in the area also known as Sandia Town Park PD. So the current existing economic development overlay area, as you can see there, encompasses the Champions Park as well as about 150 acres to its west. The proposed expansion would take in another, I think, 279 acres to the south, and it would expand the overall economic development overlay area. Again, the economic development overlay area is, the purpose of it was to expand upon the opportunities for special development and stimulate economic development in the region. The applicant has indicated that they're not here to give a second presentation since you've already heard this once before, but they are here to answer questions if the board has any. And so this was after the first reading submitted to the state for their state agency responses. Department of Economic Opportunity had no comment at this time. Florida Department of Transportation had no comment specific to the application, but said that when it's developed, they do expect to see a traffic operational analysis conducted for the impacts on State Road 45. Florida Department of Environmental Protection also had no comment, and as did the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, found no potential for significant adverse impacts to adjacent jurisdictions, which is their evaluation. And so the ultimate effect would be to expand the current 2 economic development overlay areas. The first one is in the central downtown area. The second is down to the south. It would expand it, and that's what the new area would look like if you approve on second reading. So recommended action, of course, on April 12th, y'all did approve on first reading. Like I said, it was submitted to state. And so staff recommends the City Commission approve ordinance 2021-11 on second reading.
Thank you, Brian. It reminds me, for those of you watching at home, items 6, 7, and 8, they're all second readings, so it may seem like we're going a little bit quicker, but we've covered this ground before. And I heard you say the applicant's going to rest on the presentation that was made during the first one. They're here to answer any questions, so that's going to move us to public comment. Do you have any members of the public who'd like to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, that will take us to the applicant. Did you hear anything that you'd like to cross-examine? Okay. And since they hadn't said anything, I'm assuming you don't want to cross-examine. Questions from the board? Do you have any new questions, any additional questions, any thoughts that we had since the first reading? No? Okay. Does anyone like to make a final argument? Applicant? Staff? Scott, would you please advise the decision-making body as to the applicable law and factual findings?
In all of these, in each of the quasi-judicial matters, it will be substantial and competent evidence. The opinion testimony comes from our planners or planners that are in the audience or somebody that has credentials along those ways. Unless you like to hear me say substantial and competent evidence, this will do for all of the quasi-judicial. I can try to say it in different ways all the time.
You manage different tones, different words. I like it. Okay, board will enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion to approve, deny, continue.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Clark to approve, a second from Commissioner Coleman to approve. Any comments or questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Do I have any comments or questions from the public on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Scott, would you please read into the record on second reading ordinance 2021-12/LDR 21-08 for us?
Mr. Mayor, this is amending preliminary development order 11-12 of the City of Newberry, Florida, pursuant to ordinance 10-11 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended, pursuant to an application by the property owner of said property on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, repealing development orders in conflict and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion at the appropriate time will be to pass ordinance number 2021-12 as read by title only.
Thank you. We've sworn in and we've done ex parte, so staff, give us the overview.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated, this is a second hearing on, I forgot the number, on ordinance 2021-12. This is the rezoning application for Phase 2. The reason for Phase 2 being placed ahead of Phase 1 is that if Phase 2 is accepted, then there will be a shifting under the amendment to the plan development for Phase 1 of the entitlements that go with Phase 1. And so we are out of order here. I apologize. One moment, please.
You can't be out of order yet. We haven't even got to the one I switched on you, so.
I'm assuming we're out of order, I hope. Okay, well, I can just go by memory.
You've got this.
Basically, Phase 2 adds 279 acres to the south. It is currently zoned agriculture. The application that you passed on first reading will change that. The zoning will go to PD. Land use stays the same, which is allowable under the expanded economic development overlay district. And so the rezoning, there we go, on proposed Phase 2 will change from agriculture to planned development. And then it'll become part of the overall Sandia Town Park development, planned development. Basically, this goes over we went over all this before, allows for up to 750 single-family residential units, whether detached townhouse, 550,000 square feet of light manufacturing. It also allows for development of additional tournament championship arena for the baseball stadium and development of up to 150,000 square feet of additional sports arenas in the area. It is contingent upon passage of ordinance 2021-11, the overlay district, which you just passed. So we're now moving on. Again, that's the general layout. Again, all of these, and this is the list of uses that are allowable under residential single-family mixed use and light manufacturing, which you've seen before. And project benefits are worth going over. The substantial improvements to the area infrastructure, both in water and wastewater service extensions, transportation service improvements, new commercial and manufacturing jobs. It should help diversify the economy further and provides opportunity to live and work in the same community if they want to. They can live in the PD as well as work in the PD. And the significant capital investment that's going to happen in the Sandia Town Park development. It diversifies the tax base further. And it'll also expand the opportunities for Champions Park Arena, increase the potential for an actual hotel or motel development in Newberry. Recommended action is to approve ordinance 2021-13 on second reading.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Since I heard the recommendation, I'm assuming that the applicant is willing to rest on the presentation that was made during first reading. Okay, that's going to move us to public comment. Do we have any members of the public here who'd like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none. Would the applicant like to cross-examine? Would staff like to cross-examine? Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions? Commissioner Mazon.
Yeah, could you refresh my memory when it comes to affordable homes? You know, the cost? How much is an affordable home gonna cost in that area?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, that hasn't been determined, what the prices of the homes in the development will be. Don't really have an answer for that.
Okay. Other questions? Commissioner Clark?
But, and this is probably, I always ask, and I don't know why I missed this on even the last one. The city of Newberry won't have none of the power out there. It's all Central Florida, we won't do.
Mr. Mayor, the 40-acre parcel that we currently own, where some of the facilities that are being proposed is within our power contract requirements. That said, the development of this community may involve that being self-powered, self-generation, in which case we wouldn't see a lot of power revenues from that. It'd be more of a backup situation. But the majority, I mean, that's 40 acres out of how many?
300.
Yeah. The majority of the real development is in Central Florida's territory, but all of it is looking at potentially being self-powered.
Any other questions from the dais? Okay. Final arguments, applicant? Staff? Okay, Mr. Attorney, you've already advised the decision-making body. I'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, we'll have a motion to approve. Continue. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth to approve, a second from Commissioner Clark to approve. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none. Any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will move us to item 8. Scott, would you please read on second reading ordinance 2021-13/LDR 21-09?
Is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of approximately 311.81 contiguous acres of land, more or less pursuant to an application by the property owners of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from agriculture within an economic development overlay area to planned development PD on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is passed. Ordinance number 2021-13 upon reading by title only.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
We've done swearing, and we've done ex parte, so staff, give us our overview.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now we are on Phase 2, Ordinance 2021-12. This basically reallocates some of the entitlements that the property already has on it as a planned development, extending some of those southward and changing the mix. Again, this is the second reading, so you've seen all this before, but you'll have up to 200 single-family units, 400 multifamily units, 300,000 square foot of commercial, and a potential for up to 400 hotel rooms. Again, it's the same list of permitted uses under residential, single-family, mixed use, and it doesn't have a light industrial component in there, so that's not part of it. And again, the same substantial improvements to infrastructure and the manufacturing jobs and capital investment that we already examined under Phase 2. So this was the comparison made between what is and what will be under the changes. So basically, everything under Phase 1, adding Phase 2, comes up with a total of about 950 single-family units, 400 multifamily units, 300,000 square foot of commercial development, 400 potential hotel rooms, and 550,000 square foot of light industrial.
It usually happens to somebody else on there. Oh, it's fine.
And up to 1,000 seat championship stadium for the ballpark. So staff's recommended action is to approve ordinance 2021-12 on second reading.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And once again, applicant's resting on the presentation first. Okay, that's going to move us to public comment. Any members of the public here tonight want to speak to these agenda items? Seeing none, we will move to applicant cross-examination. Staff cross-examination? Thank you. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? Seeing none. Final argument, applicant? Final argument, staff? The attorney's already advised us. We'll now enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. There we go.
Move to approve.
All right, Commissioner Clark, 3 for 3. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark. Do I hear a second? Commissioner Coleman gives me a second. I have a motion, probably second on the floor. Any comments, questions on the motion on the dais? Hearing none. Any public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And once again, I want to thank the applicant for bringing such an exciting development to the city of Newberry, for all of those lists of improvements to our community. Truly is amazing. We look forward to the future. So thank you all. Thank you. And that's going to move us to our next quasi-judicial, which is standalone quasi-judicial, which means I need to go through this process again. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we're on item 9 of tonight's published agenda. And when we move from a legislative board to a quasi-judicial board, we're moving from legislation to judicial. It means we have to operate by a different set of rules. I'm going to ask the attorney to read the ordinance in a second. Before I do that, the primary rule in the quasi-judicial is that we can only listen to evidence of record, and it shall state the following: all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. Giving opinion testimony is limited. Experts and closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. Mr. Attorney, would you please read ordinance 2020 resolution 2021-21/STUP 21-02.
Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, considering an application for a special temporary use permit to allow a carnival and concert event as authorized under Section 14.10 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing approval of a special permit for temporary use on approximately 8.59 acres within 216 acres in an agricultural A zoning district, as provided in Section 4.4 on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel numbers 02515-004-000 and tax parcel number 02515-004-001 and tax parcel number 02515-004-002, repealing resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion will be to pass Resolution 2021-21 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you're here tonight to speak to this agenda item, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and stand up, whether you're speaking in favor or against, to be sworn in. And Madam Clerk, would you please swear in our participants? Thank you, ma'am. Ex parte, Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
None.
Commissioner Mazon? Thank you. All right, and when we are in quasi-judicial, we follow the following procedure. We're first going to hear from staff with an overview, then we'll hear from the applicant with no time limit, then we'll hear from staff, also with no time limit, and their recommendation, not being contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak to this agenda item. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to cross-examine. Staff will have the opportunity to cross-examine. Members of the decision-making body through the chair can ask questions of the staff or the applicant. Final arguments from the applicant and the staff will be heard. Then the city attorney will advise the decision-making body. Then we'll deliberate. After deliberation, someone will make a motion. That's the procedure we're going to follow. Wendy, I think you're going to give us the overview on this one.
Thank you. This application was heard by the Planning and Zoning Board earlier, and we do have a recommendation from them, and that will be given towards the end of the meeting, toward the end of this item. So this application for a temporary use permit is for a special permit to allow a temporary use to have a carnival and 2 concerts, and this is the weekend of August 20th through 22nd. It's a request by Vivid Sky Vertical, as agent for Pat Post, who's the owner of the property, the 216 acres. It's about a 9-acre piece within that 216-acre property, located on the southeast corner of State Road 26 and Gophers County Road, southeast 90th Avenue, or 298. The special permit would allow for alcohol to be served as well, and The site is not, it does have that mine in there that you had heard before for the previous applications that have come before you for the mine, as they call it, for this site. But the concerts would not be provided in that location. The property is located here, as you can see on the map, on the southeast corner. And gives you an aerial view. The areas in red, outlined in red, are the area that the concert and carnival is proposed. And you have that in your packet in more detail. But it shows you that the actual area I mentioned to the Planning and Zoning Board where the Sister Hazel concert took place is really further to the north of where that little green, we see the green rectangle for it says Carnival. Sister Hazel's concert is a little bit to the north of that where the words parking are, the word parking is. And it's, so this will be set further back. You do have the treed areas around the property. So I will let the applicant take it from here if you'd like to make some comments, and then I will come back and conclude staff's presentation and recommendation.
Thank you, Wendy. And as the applicant is making your way on down, I should have, before she gave the overview, I should have just made sure you're aware that we are down one board member, which means that it's possible, it's not necessarily likely, but we could have a 2-2 vote, which would result in the death of your project. So I want to make sure you know that going into
no
this.
Pressure, right?
Yeah.
All right.
It's all about your presentation right here now.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
I think I got it.
Willing to move forward?
I'm willing.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Lenespun of Vivid Sky Vertical. We are a local production and promotion company. We are proposing a 3-day carnival, but 2 days of concerts at Post Farm, also known as The Mine, so across from Southern Fuelwood. The idea is, if you could think of like a county fair carnival, family-friendly event to bring the whole family out. We have a separate area for the carnival, which is the area in green. It'll be a rather large area, but will be fenced off, and folks will park. And then the carnival will actually be open more extended hours, so it'll open at 3 o'clock on Friday, going to 11 p.m., and then that'll be 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturday, and 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. That's just for the carnival portion. So think hurler, Ferris wheel, all those things, which that is provided by a third-party company, Florida Carnivals and More. They have all the proper licensure and insurances, et cetera. They do a lot of the state fairs and carnivals around the state. We've contracted them to do that, as well as provide some water slide elements that are kind of in the little blue area to the side. That's to provide some folks a chance to cool off in the August heat there. And then we'll also have some tents and different things out there that we will get the proper permitting and comply there, of course. So that's the carnival portion. And then Friday and Saturday evenings, we, in the second area that you see that's in red there below the carnival, that is actually where the concert area will be. We're looking at country artists for both evenings. I can't say who, but we have tentative, depending on the outcome of this, we have a couple of very nice large names, but not mega stars, but people you've heard of, sort of thing, lined up that are ready to come on board with us. So sorry, I can't tell you who. That's everybody's question. No, I'm kidding. It's fine, just me and you. All right. So the concert area will be separate. That will actually be closed throughout the rest of the activities through the weekend, except for we will open doors there at 5 o'clock on Saturday evening and 5 o'clock on Sunday evening, or Friday and Saturday from 5 to 10 is the concert portion. And like a lot of concerts, that'll ramp up. We'll start with most likely some acoustic acts, a little quieter, and then it'll ramp up to full-fledged fun concert for family-friendly type of deal. And then on Saturday night, we are planning to wrap up at 10 o'clock with a short firework display, about 10 minutes, which will be provided by a professional pyrotechnics licensed company, and they will coordinate with the fire chief and the fire department for appropriate approval, pending the outcome of this meeting today. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. We have parking. We have a flow plan similar to the Sister Hazel, where we'll bring them in and around to keep any backed up off the road. So they'll actually come in, kind of circle back around into the parking area. We will be hiring, pending our conversations, EMS as well as ASO will be out here as well. So we like to keep it well staffed. We have bonded licensed security that we hire in Basically, we try to sub out to professional companies those elements that are, high liability and high, kind of high stakes. So again, security, safety, those things. I think that's all I have for now. If you'll... All right.
Thank you, sir. Staff. Wendy, you want to come back?
Okay, so if we go to the next slide, we will take a look at the application as Eric was describing. This is a one-time 3-day event, August 20th through 22nd. And with the 2 concert events on Friday and Saturday nights, no music activity the way the resolution is written to be occurring after 10:30. He stated that the concerts typically go from 5 p.m. to 10. You would need to revise our resolution to reflect that if we want to change it to 5 o'clock to 10 or 5 to 10:30. And that we'll go over that towards the end of this presentation. So this is a carnival with rides. It would go Friday through Sunday, and setup period would be 3 days prior, as early as August 17th. Cleanup 2 days after the event to be completed with all equipment and personnel off-site by 8 p.m. Tuesday, August 24th. The anticipated attendance, 3,000 to 6,000 people. The overall capacity of the site is 29,000, as you know from past events that have been discussed for previous temporary use permits. The application also specifies the types of vendors, the food and beverage vendors, that there would be alcohol sales under the Kick and Boot Saloon alcohol license. You did have a serving procedure for the alcohol sales in your packet, and we do have that in the slides as well. Concert memorabilia is also part of the sales that's anticipated. No overnight camping or open fires. You have a site plan and emergency operations plan and facility placement location plan that has to be coordinated with the fire chief and building department. The application does specify the typical operating procedure for alcohol sales that they've used for other events regarding their wristbands and the way they handle if anyone doesn't have their band, and ensuring that security checks their IDs, and if there's any issues. The other crowd control plan is also included in your packet. It talks about the type of staff that they have for the events, and also that they're professional security, bonded and insured, the type of lighting, fencing, that kind of thing that they use for the control. The land development regulations in our code deal with temporary use permits, talk about that these are for carnivals and outdoor concerts and similar uses, and that prior to granting such a temporary use permit, there are certain items that have to be looked at, findings and conditions that are considered. And the standard of evidence for those kinds of things for temporary use permit is different than a special exception, which is a permanent type of event venue, as opposed to just in a single event that we're looking at now. So you're going to look at things that are a little bit less stringent, but safety is critical. And the city code also requires that the commission be the one that also issues an alcoholic beverage permit for the sale and consumption of these special events. They have to have an alcohol license and provide documentation of that, which they have done. But they would have to make sure they have everything's current, everything has to be checked carefully and turned into the land development regulation administrator. Proof of that has to be provided. The consideration of temporary use permits, we look at the nuisance aspect, hazard, traffic, parking, the specific time period of the event. Those are covered in our conditions and the safeguards that are included. So we look at those kinds of issues, and this is part of the resolution in your packet that has the information from the Planning and Zoning Board, as well as some additional changes that we'll go over at the end. But essentially the different findings are established as that the nuisance feature is suitably separate from the adjacent uses by the existing terrain that's there and how it's laid out, that the traffic is handled through the event staff and by getting everybody off the site and onto the property. This is similar location, as we said, just a little bit to the south of where the Sister Hazel concert was held, and that was a very successful event that was done well and handled well, worked well with the traffic issues and that kind of thing, didn't have any problems like that. Parking and specific time periods, all of those kinds of things are addressed in the conditions. And the conditions are such that the permit would be issued to this applicant as agent for the owner, and that this would, it spells out the different kinds of conditions in number 3, the types of the outdoor concert and carnival and when they can occur, the time periods. So I'm going to go through those. You've read through those in your packet, and the Planning and Zoning Board has discussed these earlier. Sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages, having to provide for those kinds of documentation. And then you've got the tents and the structures that have to be inspected and have permits for those, the operation emergency plan, the whole provision for fire extinguishers, water provision for safety, the evacuation plan, that kind of thing. So all of that would have to be worked very closely with the fire department and other authorities. The applicant would have to comply with all our regulations and codes, but the signage, of course, has to be removed at the end of the event, anything that they have out there. They have vendors on site. They have to comply with our code for vendors. So the Planning and Zoning Board heard the item earlier today. So we know that staff, we are recommending approval of the application, and the Planning and Zoning Board heard this earlier, and they have a few recommendations. So I'm going to go back to these conditions and just show you that there were 3 items that they mentioned as far as the time for the actual carnival, because that we did mention that as a staff recommendation that we need to specify those operating hours. So one of the items is that, and we'd recommend that on condition number 3, bless you, that we add the language that on, if you look at, let's see, number 3 on first B, that the concert hours, as the applicant has requested, would be from 5 p.m. to 10:30. He said 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. We've put 10:30 in there mainly because in the past events, the commission chose to change it from 10 to 10:30 for others because of the issue of if it runs over a few minutes, you didn't want to have an issue that way. Although you can decide to change it from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. and still have the provision of no music after 10:30. So that would be on number 3B. And then looking at E, the next, on E, where they have the carnival and production condition there, that we would say, add the provision that all equipment and personnel shall have vacated the site by that time, because it's specifying that all the cleanup has to be done by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, the 24th. And then to specify add an H to be able to say that carnival operating hours are as follows: Friday 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sunday 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. The other item that was mentioned would add a statement to number 4 about the alcohol license, stating that we added a sentence to that condition saying that a current copy of the liquor license shall be provided by the close of business on July 13th, 2021, as was requested by the Planning and Zoning Board. It's hard to keep up with.
I'm going to ask you to pause on
Sure.
that, Wendy, and maybe Sierra, if you got those notes, could you, while we're working through the rest of this process, could you type that into the recommended motion so that we make sure we don't miss any of those things? Because it was a little bit hard to follow, tacking them on. And I think we could
Okay,
just
it's
we could
hard.
just say adjusting the time,
Yes,
right?
I mean,
Just
we
give me the
can-
summary so that we remember what we're doing.
We can say that we have 3 items from the Planning and Zoning Board that they recommended, which was to specify the start and end times of the carnival and concert, and 2, confirm that Newberry is listed as an also insured, and then 3, that provide a current copy of the liquor license. And then I just have prepared the actual language that we can add.
Awesome. Just give us those shorthand summaries when we get there. 'Cause
Got it.
I didn't
Okay,
want to
got it.
interrupt the end of your presentation
So
and recommendation.
essentially, those are the main points. The other thing is just to mention that the application, as you know, specifies the fireworks to to go from that, on that Saturday evening, and for about a 10-15-minute time period. And staff, we just want you to know that technically, well, officially, our code prohibits any fireworks by anyone. However, in the past, there are events that have occurred and permitted for fireworks displays that were done by professional pyrotechnics groups. And so that said, it's just for your information that the fireworks is not a specifically permitted thing in this permit, but it is something that goes on. And the other item is that the staff will be bringing forward to you at your next commission meeting this issue about the fireworks, so that you can decide if you would like to actually make a change to your code to provide for fireworks in certain circumstances by certain professionals.
Okay.
So
there's the staff recommendations, and by the time we get to the end, we'll have the planning and zoning. We have a kind of a unique situation here in that we had a special planning and zoning meeting at 6 o'clock tonight to discuss this. So both staff and the applicant have gotten the opportunity to do this 2 times in a row tonight. Okay, is that your recommendation?
yes, it is. I'm just trying to make that.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are here tonight to speak to this agenda item, we have a 3-minute opportunity to hear from the public. If you would like to hear about Resolution 2021-21, if you'd like to speak to us about that resolution, now is the opportunity to do so. Do you have anyone wishing to make a public comment? Seeing none. Applicant, did you hear anything that you'd like to cross-examine?
I just want to not cross-examine as much as I think we will leave it at 10:30 to leave a little bit of a buffer, because they never end, one more song, so we'll leave a little room for that. So I think that's a safe bet, and we can update the times with you.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Staff, would you like to cross-examine? Yes. Okay. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions for the staff or the applicant? Commissioner Farnsworth.
Yeah, regarding the sheriff's department, are they going to be there the entire time? They're going to be on site the entire time?
Yes, sir. I need to coordinate with the sheriff's department after this meeting, but yes, we plan to have them there the entire time throughout.
And I'd feel much better about this if it was a rock and roll band instead of country. But,
We'll see what we can do, sir.
all right.
Can you catch cows?
Depends on how fast they are,
You ain't scared to get out there and help us, right?
No, sir.
Right there next is a bunch of our cows.
Gotcha.
And you're gonna be shooting fireworks off.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay.
I'm
gonna
fleet of
hold you
foot.
to it.
We'll see.
Commissioner Clark?
Being a business owner in Newberry, I went through this with the fireworks, and I was not aware, as myself and the manager talked, it can be a problem with the fireworks, with the horses and the cattle in the area. I do not know what's out there by that. I would say that we need to notify, or at least let people in the general area know that there is going to be fireworks. Because when they run through the fence, it does become a problem. It become a hazard more than anything on the highway. They'll get their cows tonight, but it is a pain, but it could be a hazard. So I would say we need to look at this, because we don't have an ordinance. So you're really on your own when you shoot.
Yes, sir.
We don't have an ordinance, so that's.
Commissioner Coleman?
I mean, me personally, I don't care. I think we're gonna be fine, but,
I would.
yeah, well, when I say that, then it ends up being
Don't say
bad.
that.
So,
Just,
I'd
But I
be,
just, we definitely, I know, because my family's gonna know, but I don't know who else has got cows around there. I think, does Bowie's daddy got cows through there right behind
It
there?
needs to be some, we'll discuss it.
Commissioner Clark, I'd be happy to work with Mr. Post as well to notify, to chat with the neighbors, and I know he knows everyone around there quite well, so we would coordinate with him if that helps, makes folks more comfortable.
Got plenty of money to help give them, so.
Commissioner Maison?
I was going to ask, with the carnival, with the different types of rides, you may have covered this, and I may have missed it. are the certifications up to date? The one thing that I'm seeing are these rides malfunctioning, messing up, causing people to get injured, in certain cases, deaths. So is there a way to prove that these machines are certified and up to date before they hit this property?
Yes, sir. So I'm not super familiar with that process myself, but I do know that he has provided us his, there's a licensure at the state level, and he's provided us with that. I'm sure that we can request from the carnival provider up-to-date certificates on each of those rides. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they are supposed to, on each ride, have a posted inspection date as well. I may be speaking out of turn on that, but I know there's a state-level certification. My understanding is that the Florida Carnivals and More has all that under control, and I'll ask them for specific documentation on that for you.
Commissioner Farnsworth.
I might be mistaken, but I think that once the carnival's set up, I thought the state had to come out and inspect it again, so I mean, that's...
I believe so. I can check on that, sir. That might be what I'm thinking of when I say the state certification.
Any other questions from the dais? I have a clarification question for staff. So Wendy, if you could come back down. I may have got confused at the end. When the commission votes tonight, they are voting to approve the fireworks, and you're going to bring back to us the opportunity to relook at fireworks total as a separate night, or is the carnival concert issue in front of us tonight, and they're going to come back with more specifications on the fireworks for a later date for this event?
The fireworks is not something that we're specifically recommending. It's something that they've requested in their application. It is something that we're coming back with for policy direction and how you want to go forward at your next meeting. At this time, if you approve the special temporary use permit for this event, it's assumed that they will be doing fireworks, but we're not specifically recommending that fireworks are, we can't just permit it. We can't write it in here and permit fireworks.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Wendy and Brian that there is a provision in our code. So our code is a little incongruous, and we need to work on the firework issue. And that's somewhat independent of this particular application. But in general, 38-7 says fireworks are prohibited everywhere in the city. There are no firework displays that are permitted. And it looks to me like that was enacted in 1999. I don't remember it. It was under my watch, so I don't remember it happening, but it looks like that's what we did. And however, 3897 permits fireworks for public displays and charges, our fire chief charges $50 per event for firework public displays. So now we see that the code is incongruous. 62-34 permits the city manager to, upon city manager or its designee's approval, can permit fireworks in public parks as well. So the code is incongruous with these provisions, and I do agree with Wendy that we need to have an overall look at the firework provisions and have a permitting process for fireworks. But given the incongruous nature of the code, you can't have one piece of the code say public displays for fireworks, we're going to charge you $50, and then prohibit it in another place. So my opinion is that fireworks can be permitted if that's something that this body agrees to do this evening, as we have in the past for many other special use permits. So I think we can do that based upon the incongruity in the code, but we'll do the separate look at the firework issue down the road.
And these are Friday night and Saturday nights, and not Sunday night.
Just Saturday only.
Just Saturday only. Okay, other questions or comments from the dais for staff or the applicant?
I will say that we have permitted Holtz to have fireworks, and we used to have fireworks out there at the Easton.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's been, definitely been since 1999.
And there were probably more cows then than there are now.
Yeah, Norfolk never called, complained about it.
Okay, any other questions from the dais for the applicant or staff? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Attorney, since this is a standalone, will you say it one more time?
Substantial and competent evidence.
Perfect, you nailed it, you nailed it. Okay, we'll enter into deliberations. The only deliberation I would have, guys, and I just think it needs to be said, in a normal situation, we would have a P&Z meeting where we would have this conversation about fireworks, and then we'd have a couple of weeks for that information to permeate through the community for people to call us and let us know. We're not going to have that situation now because we've heard P&Z and you guys all on the same night. So if you guys say yes, pretty good chance someone's going to call you up and say, well, how was I supposed to know to come up and protest that I didn't want that to happen? I just think we need to be aware of that situation, and it needs to be part of our deliberations, and with that, if there are no other deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, approve with conditions. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Maison. Are there any comments or questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Any public comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Congratulations. We look forward to attending a carnival. And that's going to move us to new item 10, which used to be item 18. 2 requests for voluntary annexations into the city of Newberry. This is another standalone quasi-judicial, so forgive me as I work through this process. In a second, I'm going to ask the attorney to read the ordinance into the resolution. Before he does that, once again, when this body moves from a legislative to judicial, we stop acting as politicians and we start acting as judges. That means we have to adhere to a certain set of rules, which is primarily all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts, and closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. Mr. Attorney, would you please read the ordinance into the record for us?
Yes, sir. This is ordinance number 2020-27, an ordinance of the city of Newberry,
I'm sorry,
Florida.
hang on one second. I had ordinance 2021-27. Is that
Oh, this must be a typo on mine.
a typo or just want to make sure before we get too deep into this that we're on the right one? 2021? Okay, so we'll correct that Scrivener's error -27. Go ahead.
27 is here.
And 2021-28.
This is an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel numbers 01834-003-000 and 1834-006-000, as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owner pursuant to section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations, and providing for enforcement of the same, providing directions to clerk for the commission, providing severability clause, providing an immediate effective date. Appropriate motion is passed. Ordinance number 2021-27 as read by title only.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Do we
Yes,
need
sir.
to read 2021-28, or does that encompass in what you just read? I'm kind of confused by having 2 ordinances put
We'll
together
do
like
that one, we'll do them separate. Each one of
Separately.
those.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you're here to speak tonight to either, since we have 2 ordinances in this agenda item, to either ordinance 21-27 or 21-28, if you please would rise, and I'll ask the clerk to please swear you in. You don't want to stand up?
When you get the microphone, do you hereby swear to affirm testimony taken at this hearing with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I don't know about y'all, but I've just been shocked by how much Miss Wendy's been swearing tonight. Just swearing, swearing, swearing. Ex parte, Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
No.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
None.
Commissioner Mazon?
No.
Thank you. And now I need to go through the presentation order for the next two ordinances. First, we're going to hear from the staff with an overview, then we'll hear from the applicant with no time limit, then staff will be able to give their report also with no time limit and along with their recommendation. Then we'll have, I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim third-party intervener status. That's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak to this item. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to cross-examine staff and cross-examine members decision making body through the chair can ask any questions. Final arguments is going to be made from the applicant and from staff. City attorney is going to file decision making bodies, applicable law. Then we'll have deliberations. After deliberations, we'll have a motion. Staff, give us the overview, please.
And so we go. This is the two parcels, the three parcels, two different locations for this annexation 33. You see the locations on the map. We'll go into a closer view. This is the ordinance 2021-27 that was just read by title only. These are for the two parcels that are adjacent to each other. They are located approximately a quarter mile south of Northwest 46th Avenue and slightly less than a mile east of Northwest 298th Street or County Line Road. The application is for about 40.3 acres. There's two different parcels that are 20.15, but they're adjacent, as you see. So the darker gray color is City of Newberry, and the lighter gray is the Alachua County. So the parcels that are outlined are the parcels that are requested now to go into the City of Newberry. And the next ordinance is for 2021-28, which the city attorney will read into the record at a later time. That's a petition by Mr. James Fleming for a 7.66 acre parcel that's located on the north side of West Newberry Road. It's just west of Pet Paradise. It's about 0.3 miles west of Northwest 202nd. And the ordinances, both of those, there are two separate requests to annex three parcels in the two locations, and the total number of acres is 47.96 approximately. And the proposed annexation, as you saw in those maps, it would serve to strengthen the contiguity and improve the overall compactness of the municipal boundary of the subject areas. And the section of the Florida statutes that provides for this, we have complied with as far as notice to the county. And the information is also transmitted to the Gross Management Department, and we have not received any response from the county to date. The recommendation is for approval of each of those ordinances upon first reading as read by title only, and to also establish June 14th. That's the wrong date, because we've already had June 14th. That should be July. Is it July 14th? Is that the right date? What is the right date? Today is the...
We'll have that figured out by the time we get to the end of the quasi.
2 weeks from tonight, 20... Thank you.
26.
I'm in a little trouble there. So 2 weeks from tonight, for that date to be set for the hearing for the date of enactment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wendy. Since I heard your recommendation, does that mean the applicant is waiving your right to make a presentation? Okay, that's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public here to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, does the applicant need to cross-examine anything you heard? Staff, you don't need to cross-examine. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions? Seeing none, we always like it when people voluntarily want to come into Newberry. Final arguments from the applicant? Final arguments from staff? There none. Mr. Attorney?
Substantial and competent evidence.
Well done.
Sir.
We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Mazon. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, any comments, questions from the public on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Now, we're still in this quasi-judicial. Mr. Attorney, please read ordinance 2021-28 into the record.
Yes, sir. This is ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel number 04265-007-000 as more specifically described in this ordinance as petitioned for by the property owner pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations, and the enforcement of same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, and providing a severability clause, providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion is passed. Ordinance number 2021-28 as read by title only.
Thank you, Scott.
Sir.
Staff, do you rest on the presentation recommendation you made in the first? Okay, that's going to move us to public comment. Anybody here from the public wish to speak to 2021-28? Seeing none. I'm assuming the applicant does want to cross-examine since no one has said anything new. Staff, same thing. That's going to move us to the board. Do you have any questions for staff or the applicant? Seeing none, as city attorney has already advised us, I'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Maison. I have a motion for approval. It's probably second on the floor. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, any public comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion is passed unanimously. Congratulations on becoming a new City of Newberry resident. Welcome, welcome. That's...
Mayor, we need a motion just to establish that date for these enactment hearings.
That wasn't part of the, okay, so we want
Separate.
July,
26th.
do I have a motion to set July 26th as the enactment date? I have a motion from Commissioner Maison, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Hearing none, do we have any public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Now we're going to move to new item 11, which is changing the future land use map classification previously annexed from property. Item 11 and 14 are together, so when we get to new item 14, we won't have to go through the quasi-judicial, but we are in new, so we're going to go through it one more time. Yes?
The way we've structured these has been to present all of these items together, so 11 through 16, is it?
I have 11 and 14 go together, not
So-
11 through 16.
Surprise. So
I'm
we're
perfectly
trying
fine doing the
to-
quasi-judicial one time.
because you wanted to do that, we discussed doing this so that because there are three parts, the three
You've sold me.
locations.
You don't even have to argue.
So
don't
if
even
you
have
want to
argue.
do it as all
So
6, and we'll have them
11
separate
through
motions.
16, 11 through new 16, one quasi-judicial procedure, and then we will go through it. So, one last time, when this body moves from a legislative to a quasi-judicial, we stop being politicians, we start being judges. That means we have to adhere to a certain set of rules, namely that all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. Giving opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to evidence of record. Mr. Attorney, would you please read, and we'll do the ordinances one at a time just to keep us on track. Would you please read on second reading ordinance 2021-17/CPA 21-05 into the record for us?
Yes, sir. An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 is amended, relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, subparagraphs 2 and 3 of the Florida statutes, and in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from Alachua County rural agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to City of Newberry agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcel number 02610-000-000, consisting of approximately 19.4 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances of conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion will be to pass ordinance number 2021-17 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
If you are here to speak to new item 11, because we did swap one item, through 16, I'm going to ask you to please stand and be ready to be sworn in. And Madam Clerk, would you please swear those folks in? Might just be Wendy. She's sworn, so she's good. Ex parte on any item 11 through 16. Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
None.
Commissioner Maison? Okay, let me go through the presentation order. We're going to hear from a staff overview. The applicant will have the opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit. Then staff will have an opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit, along with their recommendations. Nobody has contacted me asking to claim third-party interviewer status for any of these. That's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public have 3 minutes to talk about that agenda item. Then we'll hear from the applicant to cross-examine, staff to cross-examine, members to make a body will ask questions of the staff or the applicant. Then we'll hear final arguments by everybody who is participating. City attorney is going to advise us one time. He already done it. Then we'll enter into deliberations. After deliberations, we'll have a motion. Wendy, please give us the staff overview And if the applicant's not present, slide right on into that recommendation.
You know we can. So this application before you, you've got 3 comprehensive plan amendments and 3 rezonings for the 3 different pieces of property. This is the location of those properties. You see that those are, you've got 3 different areas. We'll go through each location individually. You can see that the process we go through is once the property's been annexed, and these properties were annexed in April of 2020, and the future land use map has to be changed from county agriculture to city agriculture, and same thing with your zoning has to go through that process as well, so that the city's comprehensive plan and zoning atlas are reflective of all the new properties that are now within the municipal boundaries. So this first change is for future land use map amendments, and this is for the second public hearing that's before you tonight. Actually, just so you know, the code, the Florida statutes, the law has been changed so that now small-scale comprehensive plan amendments are considered 50 and under acres. So it will eventually make that easier for a lot of people so that they don't have to go through that more lengthy process of going to the state. But this is the second public hearing, so it wouldn't matter no matter what. So each of these 3 comprehensive plan amendments that change the land use map were sent to the state agencies, and we did not receive any responses or adverse impacts or anything noted that we would have to respond to in any way. So everyone's fine with that, but so the changes are, the first location, this is CPA 2105, and this is the 19.4 acre parcel that's located over on the about 0.62 miles south of Southwest 46th Avenue, and it's on the east side of Southwest 250th Street. The next property is located on the north side of 15th Avenue, and it's approximately 4 miles east of Southwest 226th Street. This is about 13.7 acres. And the next property is located on about a half mile west of Northwest 170th Street, about 1.3 miles west of 202nd Street. And you see that it's just there on the north side of 26 by Dudley Farm State Park, and it's 80.87 acres. So that process is for the comprehensive plan amendment. So once you change the future land use map to reflect the actual land use category, the zoning has to be changed to implement that land use category that is on your map. So to do that, we go through the process of rezoning the property to implement your land use category. And this would go from county agriculture to city agriculture zoning district. This is the second public hearing before the commission tonight, at which time you are able to adopt the ordinance. Same location, same properties. This is the rezoning to agriculture, the 19.4 acres. This is the 13.7 acres on the north side of 15th, and 80.87 acres over by Dudley Farm State Park. And the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval of all of these applications. And of course, your rezonings are always contingent upon the approval of the comprehensive plan amendments. So the City Commission held their first public hearing back on May 24th and approved all of these on first reading, and we sent those to the state for review. And then the same thing with the zonings. Those don't get sent to the state for review, but those were approved on first reading as well. And so tonight, the recommendation is to approve each of those applications, the 3 comprehensive plan amendments, 2105 and 06 and 07, which you have the corresponding ordinance numbers listed before you. And these are on second reading that you would approve. And then also to approve the ordinances for the rezonings, which are the skip down to the next list of the 3 of them for those same properties. That would be contingent upon you approving the comprehensive plan amendments. So that gives you the recommended motions, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you. And back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wendy. Let's move to public comment. Do we have any members of the public who are here to talk to just ordinance 2021-17? Seeing none, Let's go on down to member decision-making body. Do you have any questions? Seeing none. Staff, do you like to make a final argument? Okay, let's enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, approve with conditions. I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none. Any public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on second reading ordinance 2021-18?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 is amended, relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, subparagraphs 2 and 3 of the Florida statutes, and in conformance with sections 163.3. less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres, to City of Newberry agriculture, less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres, on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcel numbers 01926-005-000 and 01926-10-015, consisting of approximately 13.7 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-18 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you,
Sir.
Thank you, Scott. Staff, Ms. Wendy, you want to give us the overview? You resting on the presentation in the first one? Excellent. That covered them all. Great. Public comment. Any members of the public wish to make a comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we're going to move right down to decision making. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions? Seeing none, refer to final arguments. Deliberations, no deliberations. I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, continue. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. Any public comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. That's going to move us to new item 13. Right. Ordinance 2021-19/CPA 21-07. Scott.
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 is amended, relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.31842 and 3 of the Florida statutes, and in conformance with the sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from Alachua County rural agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to City of Newberry agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcel number 04270-000-000, consisting of approximately 80.87 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-19 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, Scott. We're going to go right to public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak to ordinance 2021-19? Seeing none, we're going to move right down to questions. You guys have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to go to deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, approve with conditions, table. Just trying to mix them up. Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Maison. Second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any comments, questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Scott, would you please, you're doing all the work here tonight, would you please read new item 14, ordinance 2021-20?
Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance number 2021-20, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of less than 5% of the total land area of the city pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agriculture A zoning district to the City of Newberry Agriculture A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto. Tax parcel numbers 02610-000-000, consisting of approximately 19.4 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-20 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, we're going to go all the way down to questions from the board. Seeing none, we'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll take a motion to approve, deny. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions on the motion before from the dais? Seeing none, any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. That'll take us to item 15, ordinance 2021-21/LDR 21-16. Scott?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of less than 5% of the total land area of the city pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agriculture A zoning district to the City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcels 01926-005-000, tax parcel number 01926-010-015, consisting of approximately 13.7 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-21 upon its reading by title only.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Sir.
Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, we're going to move to questions. Does the board have any questions for this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll go to deliberations. Monty, I think it's your turn.
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That'll move us to the last quasi-judicial in this cluster, anyway. Ordinance 2021-22/LDR 21/17. And Scott, if you need a break, just let me know. We'll get another, somebody up here to read.
We're good, but hey, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of less than 5% of the total land area of the city pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agricultural A zoning district to the City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto. Tax parcel number 04270-000-000, consisting of approximately 80.87 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is passed ordinance number 2021-22 on its reading by title only.
Thank you, Scott.
Sure.
We're going to move to public comment. Does anybody have any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll go down to deliberations. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, are we ready to make a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. That will take us to a new cluster of quasi-judicials. And Wendy, I think you're back up. This is ordinance 2021-26/CPA 21-08. Hang on one second. We're in a new cluster, so we're going to go through quasi-judicial procedures one more time. In a minute, I'm going to ask Scott to read this ordinance into the record. Again, we have to adhere to the rules of all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits will be entered into evidence. Giving opinion testimony will be limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to evidence of record. After the city attorney reads the ordinance in, I'm going to ask the clerk to swear everybody in, then we'll do ex parte, and then we'll proceed with the following presentation order. First, we're going to hear a staff overview. The applicant who's not here tonight, then the staff is going to give their report along with recommendation. They don't have a time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody who wishes to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to move us to public comment. After public comment, the applicant would have the opportunity to cross-examine. Staff can cross-examine members of the city body can ask questions. Final arguments will be made. City attorney is going to advise. Then we'll have deliberations. After deliberations, we'll have a motion. Ms. Wendy, please give us staff overview and slide right on into that presentation and recommendation.
This application for you is for the 2.08 acres. That's a request to go from low-density residential to medium-density residential on your future land use map. It's a request by Herb and Jeannie Marlowe, who are the owners of this property. It is the low-density residential land use designation allows for 1 to 4 units per acre, whereas the medium-density residential category, which is being requested, goes up to 8 dwelling units per acre. This is located on the north side of Oakview Middle School, and it's just north of Southwest 4th Avenue. It does meet the comprehensive plan requirement to be served by centralized water and sewer. And it does provide a step down of land use intensity. Let's see what that for the property going from commercial that's to the west, that's directly on the state road, and it goes down to the low density residential to the east. And it will provide additional housing options in proximity to the school and commercial uses. This is the first step in allowing this type of use, and that goes through a future land use map amendment. And this is the first public hearing tonight, so at which you may approve or deny the application, and this is your first reading. The next step would be to go into rezoning the property. If this application is actually approved for the comprehensive plan amendment, then you would have to rezone it to a category that implements that medium density residential category. The location of the property, as I said, is on the north side. The green area is the public use. It's the school. It's where Oakview Middle School is. And it has a public future land use designation. The red is commercial land use designation. And you can see the kind of yellowish green colors is the low density residential designation. And you've got more of a green color down on the lower left-hand part of that map that shows the mixed use development of Oakview. You've got the property being located at 2 acres there. It would provide a step down from that commercial use. A lot of times you'll have some kind of a bit of higher density or other kinds of uses, like apartment uses, or a little bit more intense. You could have a small, tiny home community, or just a few more units on that location. It is something that's frequently recommended and is consistent with the comprehensive plan to be able to provide some other types of housing in that area by the school and by commercial. The recommendation of staff is for approval, and at the June 7th Planning and Zoning Board meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board did vote on the item and recommended 3-1 to the City Commission that you approve this ordinance. And the recommended action is to approve ordinance 2021-26, CPA 2108 on first reading.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy. In my repetitiveness, we forgot to actually read the ordinance,
Oh, okay.
swear in, or do ex parte. I remember saying we were going to do it and then just didn't do it. So, Scott, would you please read ordinance 2021-26 into the record for us?
Yes, sir. It is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 10 or less acres of land pursuant to an application by Herb and Jeannie Marlowe, the owners of said acreage, under the small-scale development amendment procedures established in section 163.3187 of the Florida statutes as amended, providing for changing the land use classification from low-density residential 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre to medium-density residential less than or equal to 8 dwelling units per acre on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Parcel number 01943-000-000, consisting of approximately 2.08 acres of contiguous land, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing effective date. Appropriate motion is pass ordinance number 2021-26 as read by title only.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Do we have anybody here to speak to this besides Ms. Wendy who needs to swear in? Seeing none, ex parte, Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Mazon. Okay, now we're back on track. I apologize for that. And that takes us to public comment. Any members of the public here to speak to ordinance 2021-26? Now you have the opportunity to do so. Seeing none, the applicant's not here. Staff has given their presentation. Member decision-making body, do you have any questions?
Is this the Marlowe Hotel coming up or something?
I wish I could tell you. Commissioner Farnsworth.
Wendy, what was the reservation that one member had?
On the Planning and Zoning Board, member Bill Conrad, he voted against that. And just the concern of having a medium density in that location. He was just didn't think that was needed in that location.
Other questions?
I can't speak to his thoughts, but that's just what he had.
I mean, I think from memory, his primary argument was that we don't change the zoning without a specific project already in mind.
Oh, right. So he did, I can speak to that.
Yeah,
So that he
and
did
that's-
recommend, he did state that about the application, just saying that why don't we have a specific project coming in? And then you're asking for your comprehensive plan amendment and your rezoning. But often we do have people coming in for certain projects, but that is not what is required for a request for a comprehensive plan amendment or rezoning. Frequently we have people who get those approved. As you know, from over the years, we have a lot of these approvals on the books. And then depending on the market is when they might actually go through and develop. So a lot of times people will do a comprehensive plan amendment. So the question is this future land use category appropriate in this location? And that's the question that you would be considering tonight. Is it consistent with your comprehensive plan? Is that location okay for that property, for that land use category?
Commissioner Mazon?
Yeah. So, okay, trying to get an understanding here. So, in Conrad's explanation, his reasoning behind not going along with this future plan. So it still has to come in front of the board, his plans. Because Conrad was saying basically, I would love to know what you're going to do with this property before I vote on you changing the zoning. But no matter what he does, it still has to be approved by the commission, correct?
That's, at this point, once you rezone it, let's say it's rezoned to a certain residential category that will implement that, then they would come back through with a subdivision plan, with a plat, and, they have to still go through a process that gets approved for that development. But this is residential, and it would go through that.
I was curious by the comment because it doesn't fit my experience. I went back about a year, and easily 50 to 60% of what this board does is change things, change the zoning that meets the land use without knowledge of any specific plan. We literally do it all the time. So,
Just curious, is that the norm, or is that?
That is more the
What's
norm to do that, because you don't have a guarantee. Let's say you zoned it, and you said, this person came up and said, I'm going to do this project, and I want this zoning. I'm going to do a 6 unit per acre project. Here's my design. Well, then something happens. He doesn't have to do that. He's just telling you, I'm going to do that. I want the zoning. But let's say he sells it. And then somebody else comes and says, I'm going to do an 8 unit per acre, or I've got a different design, or I want to just do 2 homes on this. So they still have to go through, they have to comply with that zoning category. So the question, for the next hearing, when you look at the zoning to implement the land use, if you approve this, you would say, is that zoning category, do I think that everything allowed in that particular zoning category that I would be approving there is okay in that location? So if you were approving a commercial district, you would say, what are all the kinds of things that go in that straight zoning category, and are any of those things okay that are allowed by right? Because that's what you're approving. So maybe that helps.
I have no problem with it. I mean, the remainder of the parcels to the east of it are all residential. I have no problem with that. I'm just wondering, do we need to change our LDRs to bring them up to date to what is the current practice? And that's probably not the discussion for now, but I was just kind of curious about it.
It is a good comment, but it will put that, make a note, we'll come back to that. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, that's gonna move us, city attorney's already advised us, to deliberations. If you have any deliberations, if there are any deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny. Motion. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Rezon.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments, questions on the dice on the motion on the floor? Any public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and we are still in the same quasi judicial. So Scott, if you will read ordinance 2021-16.
Is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application by Herb and Ginny Marlowe, owners, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from RSF 1 Residential Single Family District to RSF 1 Residential Multiple Family Zoning District on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel numbers 02263-003-000, consisting of approximately 2.08 acres of land, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-16 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, Wendy. Your presentation stands for this ordinance as well. Do you have something to add?
This is a separate application, so this is a different consideration here. So what you're asking, the applicant is asking for is, there are different kinds of zoning categories that might implement different future land use categories. And in this case, to implement that medium density future land use category, the request is to go to what we call a straight rezoning category, which means it's not like a planned development or some kind of specialized plan, where you're doing something different. So what we have is a request for what we call RMF1. So it's currently zoned RSF1, which is residential single family, and is to go to residential multifamily 1. And I'll show you what those mean. So this is that second step. After your future land use map is changed, then you would be rezoning the property. This is your first hearing, and the request is to approve that ordinance on first reading, and it would go for another hearing after this for second reading. So this is the application, again, same applicants, to go to RMF1, same location, of course. It's on city electric, water and wastewater, and which is required for this zoning category. So the location, you saw the location previously. The property being, if it were to be rezoned to RMF1, it would provide that step down from the commercial land use that you saw on the corner of 4th Avenue and State Road, and then the residential single family further to the east. It provides additional housing options. This district allows for single family, duplexes, multifamily, and other compatible uses. You have minimum lot and other requirements that are specified in your zoning district that lay out what kind of development you would do and the types of lot sizes and lot coverage you would have depending on the development that's proposed. So that's why we're saying that one person could propose one type and somebody else comes up with another, depending on the owner and their current plans. Maximum density 8 units per acre, but of course the actual density depends on the land use and development design. Minimum lot requirements, setbacks for the single family. If somebody went in and developed single family, you're going to talk about a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet and a minimum lot width of 50 feet. So remember that sometimes you'll have a planned development come in and they have all kinds of things. They might want to go to 40 feet wide or some other different design. This case, it's already set. So that's why we call straight rezoning. It's just whatever's allowed in that district is what you would be approving, what would be allowed, and they would come back for you with their design. So duplexes, 10,000 square foot minimum lot width is 85 feet. It goes through that, and you have that in your packet as well. Same thing for multifamily. It gives a minimum site area and minimum land area per dwelling unit in your different setbacks. So staff recommends approval of the application for ordinance 2021-26. That's the wrong thing as well. So we don't have anything. Let's see. So this is the application that should be for, is this the correct ordinance number?
Yeah, that's it.
2021-16 for approving LDR 21-13 on first reading. So,
Okay.
and the Planning and Zoning Board did recommend approval of this as well with that same vote.
Okay. Thank you. That'll take us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to talk to the commission on this agenda item? Seeing none, we're going to go to members' decision-making body. Do you have any questions? Seeing none, we've heard final arguments. Deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, approve the conditions. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Coleman. A second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, any comments from the public on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will move us to new item 19, which is not that. De-annexation parcel, right? Did I miss one?
Yes, sir,
No.
that's it.
De-annexation parcel. First reading ordinance 2021-33. This is another quasi-judicial. Let's go ahead and just begin with Scott reading the ordinance so we don't miss that part.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida for the voluntary contraction of the city boundary by de-annexing 77.50 acres, more or less of real property identified as Alachua County Tax Parcel Number 04152-001 and -000, generally located at the intersection of Northwest 46th Avenue and Northwest 186th Street, more particularly and legally described herein, providing for the amendment of the city's boundaries to contract the subject property from the city's boundaries, providing for implementation, apportionment, and notice to appropriate agencies, providing for repeal of the prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, providing severability, and establishing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-33 is read by title only.
Thank you, Scott.
Sir.
We're still in quasi-judicial, so we're still acting as a judicial board. All public testimony is going to be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits will be entered into evidence. The giving opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments are going to be limited to the evidence of record. If you're here to speak to this agenda item tonight, would you please stand? Anybody other than Brian need to be sworn in? Because Brian's already been sworn in. Okay, then we're going to move to ex parte. Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Maison? Okay, and that's going to take us to staff overview. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The parcel in question is the infamous windmill parcel. This is the resolution of the conflict resolution process, which was to have the owners sever this piece from the overall parcel. It's roughly a little over 70 acres. The owners did go ahead and agree to have it severed. They did that, and then once they did that, we initiated the process to go ahead and de-annex that parcel. This will effectively end the conflict resolution process with Alachua County, because then the area that has been annexed that was under the conflict resolution will now be substantially contiguous and also substantially compact, and eliminate this piece, which was neither. So basically, staff's recommended action is that the City Commission approve ordinance 2021-33 on first reading.
Okay, thank you. Brian, I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to take us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'm going to assume you don't want to cross-examine yourself. Members of the decision-making body, you have any questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
So what are the chances of one of those properties adjacent to it that's also adjacent to the city of Newberry coming into the city of Newberry so that piece of property can be re-annexed?
Mr. Mayor, let me back up the screen a little bit. It doesn't show here, but in essence, the county's growth management map encompasses all the properties around that parcel now. And so even if the city of Newberry or those people did annex voluntarily into the city of Newberry, they would still be under the county's purview for growth management.
That was one of our, I thought, strongest arguments, just to let it go, let the annexation go, because it would have been in the GMA anyway, so.
That's the one we just basically said.
Right.
We did, Mr. Mayor, just so the commission knows, we did approach several of the owners around there and got some limited response in it, but then in the intervening year that we were working on this, the county passed the growth management map and took away any incentive for annexing any of those other properties, along with the windmill property.
Any other questions? Seeing none, do you have a final argument, Brian?
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, we know that how we are going to make our decisions according to applicable law, so we're going to move to deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, and does the public have any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to our last. It's not even a quasi-judicial. Man. Okay, petition to vacate a portion of Northwest 2nd Avenue between Northwest 254th Street and Seaboard Coastline Road. Boy, I don't even know how to do this. It's not a quasi-judicial anymore. Scott, will you go ahead and read this second reading of ordinance 2125?
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, vacating a portion of Northwest 2nd Avenue between Seaboard Coastline Railroad and Northwest 254th Street, reserving said right-of-way limits as an easement for existing or proposed public utilities, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-25 as read by title only.
Thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Mike, you going to take us through this agenda item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to apologize. You have your staff report, and I'm going to ask you to work from that and the drawings that are in there. I failed to get the PowerPoint presentation over to Amy. She may find it from when we discussed this in the first meeting some weeks ago, but if she doesn't, I hope you'll just give me a little bit of latitude there.
The map hasn't changed since the first reading.
Map has not changed since first reading. Nothing has changed since first reading. We received a petition from Pat Post and from Mr. William Watson. They live adjacent to a segment of Northwest 2nd Avenue that lies between Northwest 254th Street and the CSX Railroad right-of-way. For frame of reference, that is just northeast of City Hall by a block or so. So that roadway segment used to extend across the railroad, and some 7 years or so ago, the CSX decided that didn't meet their standards, and they closed that railroad crossing there. And now we are left with Northwest 1st Avenue, which will eventually become State Road 26. So the adjacent property owners petitioned to request it. Staff reviewed the petition and determined that we do have utilities in that area. It's simply an overhead electric facilities that is intended to stay, but there's no other public use for the roadway segment, and staff recommends that we vacate the roadway and retain a utility easement over the area. When we do so, it will allow each property owner to receive a transfer from the middle of the road to their property line. So it's a 50-foot wide right-of-way. They'll get 25 foot of additional property each. One of them will have a utility easement with that overhead electric encroachment on it. This petition it's an ordinance, has to be approved twice. It was approved by a 4-1 vote at the June 14th meeting, and the discussion surrounding the no vote was whether the right-of-way might ever be, whether CSX may abandon the railroad right-of-way altogether, presenting the city with the opportunity to connect that road through there. Mr. Mayor, staff's recommendation is to approve ordinance 2021-25 on second and final reading.
Okay, does the board have any questions for staff since the first reading?
I actually do.
Commissioner Maison.
my question is this, like Second Ave, you know, and as you go up further, you have Third Ave,
Mm-hmm.
and then you also have, it goes up as far as Fourth Ave, and Fourth is like a big bill. So Second Ave, so do the city, on this side of the railroad track, going up to Third Ave, I think it was, do we own that portion?
You say west side of the railroad tracks?
West side, yes.
North and west. Right. Going north on the.
Going north on the west side,
So.
Third
we-
Ave.
We maintain Third Avenue west of 254th. There is no Third Avenue east of 254th.
All right, Commissioner, are you asking whether we have the ability to put another crossing there?
No, I was just wanting to know who owned, like, there is a Third Ave, but from, not on the east side of 254th, but on the west side of 254th, correct?
Third Avenue west of 254th is the
Who owns
city
that property
maintained
on
street.
the east side of 254th?
Mr. Post,
Post.
one of the applicants.
Okay, that's all I have.
I
Any
wish I
other-
had the displays, my apologies.
Any other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Motion
I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Coleman. And just to verify, my memory is Scott did read this ordinance 2021 and 25 in the record, just making sure. It's getting late. I thought so. Okay, any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any comments, questions from motion on the floor from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Farnsworth?
No.
Commissioner Mazon? Dramatic effect.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Farnsworth in dissent. And that will take us to our first agenda item tonight, construction plans for Phase 1 of Countryway South subdivision. Brian, are you taking us through that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Okay, so this is Resolution 2021-25, which is a resolution that would approve Countryway South Phase 1 construction plans. As you see on the map, the red line is the totality of Countryway South. The yellow blocked area is roughly what covers Phase 1. It's, as you can see, it's just south of the original Countryway, hence the name. It does not go all the way to 30th, and so it will be accessed through the original Countryway South neighborhood. This is the outline layout of Phase 1, and the large packet of plans that you have there. Those are the, those are actually the construction plans, the final construction plans, which I need to put. And so those will be the plans that will actually go for construction. Been quite a few changes back and forth from staff review and working with the engineer who's provided them, and staff is satisfied that the final revised plans submitted meet all the requirements of the City of Newberry Code. And the engineer for the applicant is here if we have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Scott, you want to read Resolution 2021-25 into the record for us?
This is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, approving with appropriate conditions and safeguards construction plans for Countryway South Phase 1 as authorized under Section 5.17 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations for the construction and infrastructure of site improvements in a planned residential development, PRD zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, repealing all resolutions in conflict and provide an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2021-25 as read by title only.
Thank you, Scott. All right, do we have any questions from the dais? Commissioner Farnsworth.
I'm just kind of curious, has Jamie reviewed these plans?
Mr. Mayor, the Utilities Director, Jamie Jones, has reviewed these plans extensively, and there have been significant revisions as a result of those reviews.
Amy, can you put the map back up
That's
of
a good question.
how far that one there? Where is that 30th down there? Of
The large block of property just south of the
that's
border.
Chambers Park, right?
No, that large block is between Countryway South and 30th.
At 30th.
And so at the
Champions Park is
bottom,
that in the corner.
Champions Park is that
Yeah.
little green area down at the bottom, yes.
And we still don't have any other plans to create another exit out of the back or down to 30th or out to 27 across the railroad tracks.
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor. There are no plans.
And all of these sections have already been approved a long time ago. Now we're just approving the updated versions of them.
The zoning was approved about 10 years ago, I think it was, and they had started to move forward with it, and then circumstances changed with the economy, et cetera, and it's been until now that they've come back and are ready to move forward again with it.
And we know how many houses and how much we think about the 7:30 o'clock traffic trying to get out of Countryway. There's only one exit.
It's actually a fairly small development. The maximum number of units would be, based on the amount of acreage, I believe it's 93, but they're not actually designing to that number. It looks like they're designing to a lesser number.
And Mr. Mayor, the staff's plan, working with both Brian, Wendy, and Jamie, is that this development, coupled with the parcel immediately south of it, we plan to extend utilities and roadway infrastructure down to Southwest 30th, just waiting on that future development to make that happen.
Okay. Board have any other questions? Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, first I've seen it, but it is, kind of on the traffic thing.
Yeah.
But you're saying, Brian, that this, so the development that you're showing is, 30-something lots here, is that, it's gonna develop on that, right? This is just first phase?
It's phase one. The second phase will be somewhat
Continue
similar.
on.
Yes, sir. It'll continue on the south end of the phase
And the
one.
only way out of this first, the road that attaches up there in that left-hand corner of that yellow?
Yes, sir. For the foreseeable future, that's correct. As the property below that develops in the future, there'll be a stub out of some sort on the south end on phase two, that someday when that...
27?
Beg your pardon?
Into 2741?
No, sir. It'd have to cross the railroad tracks for that. It'll go south down to 30th.
Oh, to 30,
Yes, sir.
which would have to be included in the Bass property.
It'll be dependent on the ultimate development of that property, yes.
Not Magnum, Fars. Fars owned a big lot, and the Basses owned the one right up against 27. So, but all of these other, if we followed the Countryway down, all of those other parcels are already planned for future subdivision use. I think some of those middle ones are owned by some cooks.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, everything else right now is zoned agricultural, and the smaller parcels that you see up on the to the west of the Countryway South neighborhood, not the larger parcels necessarily, but some of the smaller ones already have homes on them, single-family homes on them, and so those probably will not develop any further. But the large blocks that abut, they're just north of Southwest 30th, will probably ultimately develop in the future.
Commissioner Maison?
Did I miss this? Like, where's that complex road gonna come out? Like, where's the traffic gonna come out at? Is it gonna come out to the railroad track to 27, or is it gonna come through
Through the existing Countryway.
Sandy
the existing
attempt.
Countryway?
Okay. Yeah, the traffic from this, that'll be generated from this, will ultimately go through the existing Countryway up to 15th. Again, and someday there will be, down in the south, there will be a stub out that will allow for future connection to 30th to offer an alternative.
But we have
exit point.
no concept of the timeline
No, sir. That's
of
correct.
that. Mike?
Brian, are there any records back from when zoning was provided for this parcel that that trips or that traffic generation was going to do anything other than go through Country Way?
Thank you, Mr. Manager, because I had forgotten about that. There were traffic studies done for the original application, and those traffic studies showed that it would not diminish the level of service on the existing roadway pattern. There hasn't been substantial change in the development around this area in the intervening years, and so the traffic studies we think would still be valid today.
I don't think it can get much worse coming out in the morning, trying to come out of Country Way.
Well, we just developed the corner,
Yeah.
the whole corner's been developed since this was traffic study, which is
Mike,
in front of the middle school.
yeah, FDOT is doing something. Remind us that construction, because it's not going to be a roundabout there, right? But it is going to be a turn lane turning into 15th.
Correct.
Which may or may not help people trying to turn left out of 15th in the morning, but we have hopes.
Mr. Mayor, FDOT has two projects going there. One was driven by the city commission. I think it's already complete. They're going to restripe the crosswalks to make them safer.
Is it complete?
They've moved the beacons. I haven't seen the striping, but the beacons have been moved. They're waiting for the school year to end to do that work, so it's underway. The second project is the addition of turn lanes. It is a westbound turn off of 27 southbound, right in on the Southwest 15th. I do not believe that there are any additional turn lanes added as part of that project. It's been a while though, so it could be possible there's a right turn lane coming out of 15th Avenue as well, to allow traffic, to be in two lines. And, Mr. Mayor, the applicant's agent, the design engineer, is in the audience, and she may be better prepared to answer these questions. She's an expert in traffic, I can tell you that.
Come on now, does the commission have any? I guess while she's making her way down, Scott, what is the commission's legal right to say no here? Even if we say, look, that the traffic coming out of there is already backed up, it's too congested, we can't add to that. The applicant has had this on the books for quite some time. What's our options here, really?
Well, I think probably the best option for the city at this stage is if we don't have adequate information at this stage, is to punt, to continue it to a date certain for additional traffic engineering analysis and study, rather than deny at this stage. That would be my suggestion, if we don't have some of the answers that we need this evening.
Thank you, Scott.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to maybe tag on to that as well. As the commission knows that we don't do a concurrency analysis at this point, and typically with local streets, we don't do a concurrency analysis at all. Since the law has changed, I think in 2008. The concurrency analysis would come at platting, which is the next step. But I'm confident that this developer investor would like to know that the commission would approve a plat where concurrency is evaluated prior to making a big investment in infrastructure. So I support, if the commission has traffic concerns, I support that we continue rather than approve or deny, so that we can regroup, figure out what the answers are to the commission's questions related to traffic impacts, and then bring that before you.
Okay.
Commissioner
Clark.
Mayor, so, and here's, we've done talked about this before, and I say this in what Brian just mentioned, these are 10-year development plans, and we are now making those decisions based on things that were 10 years ago in the making, and the same thing we went through. When these developers come in here, we're sitting here making the plans now for things that were done prior to us, but they spent so much money that this ain't the way to deny somebody doing this as we sit here at this board. So concerned about traffic, but I don't know that if this wasn't done prior to this, I think there's been enough money spent that we're almost our hands are tied.
Commissioner Coleman?
Well, we just approved pretty much the Davises out there on 46, or between 30th and 40th. So it's gonna do nothing but get worse. And you know what? That's on the state. We don't own that road, am I correct?
Correct.
Out there. They should already have it, to me, I think they should already have a red light there.
Stoplight.
So I can't see where the burden is really on the landowner and the developer. So I move to approve that, we just go ahead and approve this.
Okay, I have a motion. Anyone want to make a second to the motion?
second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? I mean, I would say our responsibility at this point is to turn to our staff and say, we got to figure out how to get another access out of country way at this point. Because all the people that don't want to drop their kids off, they just want to get to work, they would, I think, would probably head south to circle back around. I think our problem is with the countryway on the other side and Sandia Park, we're dumping a whole lot of people south that are going to be coming north, and it's going to get really tough to make a left-hand turn coming out of 15th, because in the past it's just been folks coming from Archer, which hasn't been that much. But now we got two big developments on the that are coming that are going to be sending people that way. You know, maybe.
Well, here again, Mr. Mayor, this is 10 years in the making, and
Right.
just same as we sit here, Newberry wants to grow, but the school board ain't growing with us. So where's the burden?
Yeah. Commissioner Maison?
Yeah, I got that, but, I mean, yeah, the school board's not wanting to grow with us, as you said, but we still have our citizens. They're the ones that are gonna be at 15th Ave driving and taking these kids to school. And I feel that with this plan, yes, it's a lot of money. It's 10 years later. I personally don't think our hands are tied. I personally think that, honestly, with this decision, if anyone coming on this board, that they're gonna have to think twice about the decisions that they make 20 years or 10 years in the future.
Oh, then I'll go ahead.
How was that Commissioner Maison's son? Were you finished?
That's it.
I'll just make a brief comment about zoning and then construction plan. And it came up on the last item where we were rezoning, but we didn't know when multifamily might go in. It is not uncommon to zone land and it wait 10 or 20 years, and that doesn't put a burden on a commission. Professional developers understand that zoning enables them to do development, but that off-site improvements may be warranted based upon, other circumstances. If this particular development order said that before you can get approval, you got to do an analysis on a lift station wet well and make sure there's lift station capacity, and their engineer did. And it was a current analysis. It wasn't 10 years ago we had capacity. It was this year. So that was a step that we undertook during plan review. I say we, it's really our team undertook that. And so the time when concurrency needs to be addressed is now. There's no sense in trying to decide whether Southwest 15th Avenue was going to have available capacity if development wasn't going to occur for 10 years. That said, this instance, the plan that the mayor suggested is to go south. It's not readily available. It's not something that this developer would be able to make happen. So, the commission, to me, should consider that as they decide yes or no, or to postpone, defer, and tell staff to go talk about it some more. And I still think it would be nice to have Allison Fettner, the design engineer, offer her insight. She has more expertise in traffic than I do, than anybody on our staff.
Okay. And come on down, ma'am, and introduce yourself to us, and we'll see if we have any questions. I also would want to remind the board that we're down one commissioner. And I think if there's a chance that we need more time to think about this, if this would end in a 2-2, that we might ask the maker of the motion to amend to table it and buy us all some time not necessarily for us to think about it, but enough time for our fifth commissioner to get here so that we don't end in a deadlock. Does anyone have any questions for?
I have a comment prior to her giving.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner
Or
Clark.
just what the manager said, but he just mentioned that the developer just spent money on this lift station. So why did this become before us, before we start letting people spend money prior to
Do you have an answer to
approving the
that?
plan?
Well, okay, I'm going to give you all a little bit of history, okay? When I started designing this, what? Yes. When I started developing it for Trip Norfleet, the whole concept of this, these are very, very small lots. And his concept was to build very small houses. I'm not saying that would make a huge difference, but it does make a difference. I didn't see these as, or he didn't, as family homes. They were more for like retired people, single people, things like that. So not saying, but that does make a difference in the trip generation. And as far as, you do realize that you have a phase 2 coming up here, that you could generate the traffic at that time before money's spent on it. I agree with him, is that I feel that the concurrency should have been done, and if you were going to do that, required in the beginning like they did the lift station. And then you could make the decision whether he wants to spend the money he's spent on this now. But, so that is just my only comments was, they're not going to be giant houses with areas for kids to play and things like that in the yard. It's going to be, I think, has more of a sales to, smaller singles, new couples, things like that. So, and that does lessen the number of kids you take to school.
So is this kind of like the homes that he's building behind the town center that are the smaller ones?
Yeah.
Is this the same?
Yeah, that's what he had planned on. I do know I'm not going to not tell you the truth. There has been somebody looking at buying this from him, so, and I do not know where that stands right now.
Okay. Commissioner Maison.
Yeah, how many houses again?
It's 41. And there also was a development agreement revised and readopted. When was that? During the pandemic. And, at that point, I think we thought that everything was okay when the city approved a revised development agreement.
More like retirement type, small homes, not family units.
Yeah, I think, but the concern for me.
Well, these lots aren't big enough.
Hang on one second. Let's keep order. I know it's getting late. I think the concern for me isn't necessarily whether these are families that have children. I mean, if they're young families, if they're trying to get out to work, all of those are cars. So and I'm not saying that to come down on one side or the other of this. I'm saying it to our staff that even if you told me that was a retirement division, that those 43 houses were all going to be, maybe that would help because retired people generally don't leave till 10 o'clock in the morning. That would kind of miss that morning.
There's just a little bit of a
everybody that
difference.
tries to get out of Country Way in the morning, whether it's to drop their kids off, take them to private school, or go to work, becomes another car in that line of cars that we all get complaints that can't get out in the morning. So, and that's more for our staff just to hear that if we're going to continue going south here, we've got to figure out how to get that road all the way to connectivity. And we really, to my question, we really need to hear from you, Commissioner Farnsworth, about whether or not we should try to table this to get another commissioner here, or whether we kind of need to hear your thoughts, because right now we got 2 saying go, 1 with some reservations. Where are you at? You like to surprise us that way. If that's what you want, Commissioner Farnsworth.
No, as far as I'm concerned, I'm okay with going ahead with it. I think maybe we can look at maybe making a turn lane on 15th to turn south. I don't know if we can do that anytime soon or not, but I think maybe that would alleviate some of the congestion.
That is one of the things that we're trying to see if there's enough room to have a southbound turn lane coming out of 15th. That would take a few cars that want to go that way off. Okay, are you finished, Commissioner Farnsworth?
I'm done.
Okay, Commissioner Mazon?
What if they can't? What if they can't put a turn lane in?
Mr. Mayor, I can address that. There's absolutely room to put in a turn lane. The bigger obstacle is not can we do it. The bigger obstacle is can we afford to do it, and who should pay for it. That side street is a city street. FDOT would not be the first choice to foot that bill. They would say that's the city's responsibility. We typically tag that over to a developer. The developer that is generating the trips, and generally at staff, we look a lot harder at intensive developments. I'll give you an example. The retirement community that's been approved with 900 units has agreed, and this commission directed that you will improve 15th Avenue from your point of connection all the way west to Southwest 15th with intersection improvements. They know that, and they're pricing that in. But that's different to price that into a 900 unit development than it is into a 41 lot development. So I'm not telling the commission which way to go with this. I'm just trying to give input into at least staff's approach. Usually small developments, we don't ask for wholesale changes. Large developments is a lot easier to do, but that DOT says, hey, that's a city street, and the city should participate, whether it's the city or developer, in making those improvements. Same thing with the traffic signal. We've had it analyzed. It doesn't warrant a traffic signal at this point, and they have a 9-step process for when it's warranted and when it's not. But when it's warranted, they're likely going to look at the city and say, hey, you guys are going to have to pony up at least half because you have half of the approaches and we have half of the approaches. That's going to be their first shot out of the gate.
And stoplights are about $300,000.
About $300K, correct.
And then they cost $10,000 to $15,000 a year to maintain. Mike, pop quiz. If the city wanted to put in a southbound turn lane coming off of 15th headed towards Archer, we'd have to do it after the new entrance into the town, the Countryway Town storage, right? So from 27 to that, what are we looking at? 300,000?
No, sir. Wouldn't be that high. Allison, do you have?
See, I like to start high.
We're adding a right-hand turn lane, just one slip lane from.
Yeah, it would probably be about 100, 125 maybe.
Okay.
We'll charge it to the fire department.
Okay.
We got plenty of money.
According to the length, I mean, there's a lot of dimension.
Yeah, sure.
It would
I'm
be
just
very-
curious if this body wanted to take that on as a way to try to continue to help alleviate while FDOT is doing that construction, there might be a partnership there which may speed up our conversation, because once you've got the crews there, sometimes there's some cost savings to go ahead and do it. So we've had a good conversation. We have a motion on the floor. It's been properly seconded. We could certainly amend our direction to staff to look at that turn lane and have conversations with FDOT about whether, if we wanted to partner when you come in to put your turn lanes in, if we wanted to add a turn lane, could we pay our fair share, and then come back with that information. Commissioner Coleman?
Is it gonna pass for 41 homes in there, the trips? Are they?
We trip, the one test we trip is that 7:30 in the morning. That's when we have the backup. We don't trip any of their other tests at any other time of the day. So it's when everybody drops off their kids in the morning, you can't get out of that. For the rest of the day, it's kind of staggered, right? Elementary school gets out at one time, high school gets out at another time, and these days, nobody gets off at 5 o'clock, so.
Well, I want to hold with my motion, because if that passes, then it's, well, once again, the burden's not on the contractor here. That's not his fault.
I mean, what would actually ideally be better, but I don't think there's any chance in us having this conversation at this point, would be a roundabout coming out of there. That would
Yeah.
solve a lot of these issues, and if we don't do it now, I don't think we have a chance to do it. Mike, you got any shot at getting a roundabout there?
We do. FDOT staff that I've spoken to about it likes the concept of a roundabout. The challenge would be available land. We have surprisingly more land than you would think. There's where the road is now is we're pushed way far south. If you'll notice at 15th Avenue, coming from the east doesn't align with 15th Avenue from the west.
West.
But it could. We actually have road right-of-way. Now, before the railroad track, we'd have to kind of push it back over to the south. But we have land to directly line up with that. And there's also a, what do they call that strip of land that FDOT has in there that they reserve?
Murphy Reservation.
There's a Murphy Reservation there. So in two areas, we have enough room for some sort of a roundabout. DOT staff like the idea. They know that small communities tend to get skittish about roundabouts. But it would still be, I can't see a roundabout coming in for under $350,000.
But if we were gonna spend $100,000 on a turn lane,
Exactly.
we could throw that in and that would help alleviate all of these.
And wouldn't the state contribute to that roundabout, seeing it's gonna
Absolutely.
be out there, so?
Yes.
And it's their preferred. Okay, Brian, I think you had one last piece of information before we call the question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment on the potential for a revised traffic study. When I said that there hasn't been much development since the original plans were developed, what I meant was there hasn't, in terms of the residential development in that area, it's been fairly fixed because Countryway was already developed out when these plans were originally developed. And so when they do a traffic study, what they're going to look at is the trip generation and whether or not that trip generation is going to cause a diminishment of the level of service on the roadway. They determined in the original study that it would not have a significant impact because of the low number of homes at 93 or 94. The actual number of homes, number one, is going to be probably closer to 75 or 70 to 75. It's going to be a reduced number from the original allotment that they could have developed to. But also, two, the likelihood that they're going to show a diminishment in the level of service is slim because the analysis hasn't changed that much over the 10 years. What's changed is the driving patterns in that morning slot when you have the traffic combined, people going to work and the school coming in. And so the likelihood that the traffic analysis is going to show anything different is not actually very high because the number of units isn't likely to diminish the level of service. It's that one window in the morning that's the problem, and that has grown over time. That's true.
Well, we'll write down that comment, and every time someone complains about it taking 30 minutes to get out in the morning, we'll just reiterate it. Okay, let's go ahead.
One last thing.
One last thing.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure the commission remembers that in June of 2019, we presented on this. So I dug up that drawing, and the only improvement in terms of a turn lane is on State Road 45 southbound, turning right into Southwest 15th. There is no improvement on 15th plan.
Okay, so let's go ahead and call the question. Commissioner Coleman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Mazon?
No.
3-1 with Commissioner Mazon in dissent. That takes us to item 22, preliminary fire assessment. Dallas, you waited all night to give us this preliminary fire assessment. So bring it on. And you're going to explain what a preliminary fire assessment is versus the actual final decision in your presentation.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. First, I'm going to try and wake myself up. Whatever the commission wants. Be really interesting for my harassment lawsuit that's on film. Fair. Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, tonight we are requesting approval of your preliminary fire assessment rate. As the commission knows, the preliminary fire assessment rate is the maximum rate that the commission can adopt for fiscal year 2022. It is the rate that will be noticed in your truth and millage notices that'll go out to each of your residents in August. It says here are what the proposed tax rates are. The commission can adopt a lower preliminary fire assessment rate at its final assessment hearing in August, but it cannot adopt a higher one without renoticing all of your residents. So in your packet today, we've prepared multiple copies of the resolution. There is a resolution that continues your current fire assessment rate of $175 per household, 19 cents, that's not the right number. Preliminary, $175 per household with a square footage rate for non-residential categories. We've also prepared a resolution that has $185 residential fire assessment We've given the commission these two options because we haven't had your general fund workshop yet. We wanted to provide the commission some options in case you wanted to adopt a higher preliminary rate resolution tonight before you have your workshop tomorrow. Staff does have a budget that is based on the $175 rate. So with that, answer any questions the commission might have.
Dallas, you know, when we made the decision about the fire truck, which was I don't know, $600,000, $700,000, $500,000, it was some hundreds of thousands of dollars. This board decided to increase the fire assessment by 25 to pay that off. We have another decision with the Quint that's even more expensive than the fire truck. Now, the preliminary, should this, I mean, what would $25 do in terms of allowing this board the opportunity, the chance to make that kind of decision? Because we got a presentation on the Quinn tonight, but we haven't had a conversation about what we're going to do. But any of those options were all, you know, 500,000 plus. And we've generally, just to add for Commissioner Clark and Maison up here, you know, we've generally made the determination that when we have these big expenditures in our fire department, we try to split the difference between ad valorem and fire assessment. So we try to share the pain kind of across the board. So it seems like we have to make this decision tonight. And remember, you can go to 185 tonight and go back to the 175 later. But a $10 increase for potentially a piece of equipment that's more expensive than the fire truck wouldn't cut.
Mr. Mayor, in your manager's proposed budget, which I know you haven't seen yet, the Quint is funded at the $175 level. Obviously, there have been cuts to other departments and other areas to make that happen, to fund that Quint purchase. And obviously, if the commission decides to go in a different option than buying a new Quint, you would free those monies up as well, which is why we felt comfortable just bringing a $10 increase as an option. The $10 increase would generate about $38,000 more than the 185 would generate about 100. Oh my gosh, let me start again. 185 would generate about $38,000 more than the 175. But again, the 175 has the Quint in the budget, and we do have a balanced budget.
And do we know what we cut out to make that 175 work?
There's a whole list.
Off the top of your head?
There's a whole list.
It's the list.
Okay. What is thoughts about the board? Commissioner Clark?
We can set it tonight, and we could go down.
Correct.
Correct.
But we cannot
Go up.
set it tonight and go up.
Without,
So we can
you'd have to renotice your entire population to go above
But
it.
I'm saying we can back up.
Correct.
That's,
And you set it at 175 on your budget. So if we go up a little higher tonight, we can always back down to our budget that you've assessed, but we can't go higher.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
That's the way.
so it's whether or not you want to give yourself some wiggle room.
And that's
Moving
where we're
forward.
at, because I haven't seen all the numbers on this Quint as far as which decision we're gonna make. And that 53,000 was the payment? Is that what I was seeing tonight?
Yes.
Is that 53,000 the payment for the Quint?
Yes, sir.
But the $10 would generate 38,000.
Correct.
I mean, $10 would definitely be
It'd be,
cutting the baby up a little bit, you
it
know.
would.
But I'm just reading the Old Testament. Wow. Man. Other thoughts? Commissioner Farnsworth?
Is the fire truck paid off?
The fire engine is not paid off, no, sir.
So how much do we owe on this?
I mean, we asked this question.
Mr. Mayor, to caveat the answer, first of all, we did pay cash for the fire truck, so it is paid off and that we don't owe anybody else for it. However, we are still repaying ourselves for it. Without doing too much math, we owe about $300,000 left on the fire engine.
Over how many years?
We are paying the fire engine over 12 years, making a $35,000 a year payment. We began that payment in 2018.
So we got a long time left.
We got about
Well,
9 years left.
And I think it's important, Commissioner Farnsworth's question is because this board, not necessarily this board, but this body said we were upping the fire assessment from 150 to 175. That 25 was going to make that payment, and when it's paid off, we would go back to the 150. So I think that's the genesis of that. The fire department has needed an incredible infusion of cash here in the last 5 years because for the past 30 years, this board hasn't fed it. So the building, the equipment, the apparatus, the salaries, all of it got way behind schedule. I think this is the last big ticket item that we have to address for the fire department, and then we will have, don't start thinking. Don't start thinking. And then we will have an updated, renovated, fairly brand new fire department that is the cream of the crop in the county, So I think that maybe Commissioner Farnsworth was going somewhere else with that question, but in my mind, that's why I asked a couple meetings ago, same question, knowing that this conversation was coming up. So you guys have a 175 budget. You have the opportunity to do 185 to give yourself some wiggle room, or to do 200 and give yourself some wiggle room. And you can always go back later on, but you can't go, whatever you say tonight, that's the top that you can go. Commissioner Cole.
I say that we move to approve Resolution 2021-23 to 185,000. I mean, 180. Man, we're gonna have some nice trucks.
We're not going to have any residents. We'll have 0 citizens, but we'll have that great fire department.
To $185.
I have a motion to go pass resolution 185.
Mr. Mayor, do you want him to read it?
Well, let me see if I can get a second before it dies. Do I have a second?
I want to give us a little room. I mean, the fire department has definitely got to be funded.
Is that a second?
It sounds like he might be going higher.
Okay, motion dies.
We can't back down.
Motion dies for lack of a second. So while you guys think about it, let's have the resolution read into the record, and then we'll see if we get another motion.
Mr. Mayor, this is resolution number 2021-23, a resolution of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the provision of fire rescue services, facilities, and programs in the City of Newberry, Florida, establishing the estimated assessment rate for the fire rescue amendment assessments for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, providing for hardship assistance, authorizing a public hearing and directing the provision of notice thereof, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion will be to pass resolution number 2021-23 as read by title only, and of course announce the rates for both residential, commercial, and industrial warehouse, institutional. So all of the rates should be announced.
Okay, thank you, Scott. And what was staff's recommendation for the wiggle room on the other side, the commercial? Commercial stays the same and the residents pay for the wiggle room?
The rates for, no sir, Mr. Mayor, any increase to your residential will have a corresponding increase to your non-residential. At $185 per residential unit, your commercial rates are 16 cents per square foot. Your industrial warehouse rates are 3 cents per square foot. Your institutional, 21 cents per square foot. And your current rates are really far away.
Almost there. Scrolling. While you're scrolling.
Your current rates are 15 cents per square foot for commercial, 3 cents per square foot for industrial warehouse, and 20 cents per square foot for an institutional. So if I remember correctly, it's about a 4-cent increase. Yeah, it's like, it's 1 cent almost per.
Commissioner Coleman?
Hey, and then we don't have to hold to this, so I'd rather go high.
And come back later.
So I'm gonna go to
200,
Move to approve at 195.
195. Okay, I have a motion to take the fire assessment at a preliminary time to 195 by Commissioner Coleman, seconded by Commissioner Clark. I have one other question before we still have more conversation here. You know, we have some businesses that are more dangerous and use fire services than others. Is there any way to shift some of the burden of the fire department to businesses that seem to be inordinate users of the fire department?
Mr. Mayor, there are a number of methodologies the City Commission can use to assess the fire assessment.
Fire assessment gets you one answered call, and then you pay $300 after that for every other call.
We'll do an insurance program where there's a copay and all that. Some communities, I believe the City of Gainesville does this, is they assess you fire protection units based on the type of business you are, and each unit costs a certain number of dollars. Let's say it's $20. A movie theater may be 10 units, where a gasoline refinery may be 200 units. So the commission absolutely can do that. We would require to rewrite our ordinances for the fire assessment, but that is certainly something the commission can do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion, probably second on the floor, for preliminary assessment at 195. Are there any last comments, questions on that, Commissioner Parker?
Yes. My personal belief is that it should be funded out of the general fund, and because I still believe that the fire assessment fee causes an unfair burden upon those people whose properties are not nearly as valuable as some of the other properties. So I'll be voting against any increase, and go from there.
Okay, Commissioner Maison?
How soon can this rewriting the ordinance be done before this vote, or do we
Mr.
have
Mayor,
to vote and then later on?
Mr. Mayor, we would need to, if the commission wanted to rewrite the ordinance and reassess the way reapportion the way we assess the fire assessment, it would need to be a budgeted item that we would need to contract GSG to redo our assessment. And it would not be something that could take effect this fiscal year. The earliest you could put it into effect would be for fiscal year 2023.
The estimated cost of that study, this just strictly ballpark, $35,000 study.
That's probably correct. We have to, every few years, redo the study anyways, which last time we did it, I think, was about $15,000, but that was just keeping the current assessment. So I think the city attorney's $35,000 is probably correct to basically start a new fire assessment program.
The last time we did that study, the result was that if you wanted to split the cost between general fund, which is property taxes, and fire assessment, then residential should be over 250, 275, something like that. Might have been up 300. Commission didn't want to do that for Commissioner Farnsworth's argument, so they set it at $25 with the idea that they would just sort of incrementally go up, which didn't particularly happen, but in the last 10 years or so, we've managed to kind of get it there. I think that, you know, we need to have a conversation, because I need to know, we need to know, we have to set a preliminary rate. We have a timeline here. So if this motion fails, and it fails because two commissioners aren't going to vote yes on a fire assessment at all, no matter what the rate is, what does that do to our timeline, and what does it do to our budget? Because right now, the fire department is funded not quite 50-50 from fire assessments.
Mr. Mayor, off the top of my head, I believe your budget for next year is just shy of 1.7 million.
1.7 now.
So this would generate a little over 600,000. We make about 200,000 in the fire services agreement with Alachua County. It's about 800,000. The remainder comes from your ad valorem. So it's 50-50 if you include fire assessment and the fire services agreement, and then the other 50% comes from your ad valorem.
If you choose to vote down the fire assessment, that money doesn't go away. You just take the what would be the equivalent ad valorem increase to make up that difference?
1.1 mils, 1.2 mils.
So you take the millage from 5.99 to
7.2.
7.2.
Which would require, I believe, a supermajority vote.
Right. So when we think about the fire assessment, and this is very complicated, and it can be very controversial. But if I'm in an older house that was homesteaded 30 years ago, I probably have a pretty good chance of needing the fire department more because I live in an older house, and I'm paying next to nothing for that fire service. If I live in a brand new home that's assessed at, $400,000, I have a less likely chance of needing the fire department because my wires are all up to codes, everything's good. I've got coded sprinklers and alarms, and I'm paying way more than that fire assessment fee because I'm paying more of the burden. Right now, the flip side of that is Commissioner Farnsworth's argument that if I've at that 175, everybody pays that whether I live in a $30,000 manufactured home or I live in a $500,000 home. But our fire department responds to those $30,000 manufactured homes much more frequently than they respond to the $500,000 home. And when it comes to fire, as Chief Buckner would tell you if he was here, when you call up 911 for fire service, the same level of service comes to you no matter what you live in. So everybody gets the same service, but if it's strictly ad valorem property taxes, not everybody pays into it. We still don't pay the same, but it's possible that I don't pay into it at all if it's strictly through ad valorem. I may get that service for nothing or $10 a year, right? So the fire assessment fee at least makes everybody has to pay a portion. Everybody has to pay something. But I want to make sure that we all understand the ramifications of potentially voting down the preliminary assessment, throwing off the timeline, and that doesn't mean that we just save everybody $175. That means that now we have to go for a supermajority vote to increase the ad valorem over 7%. So it's not there's a domino effect to these decisions, which is exactly why we have these conversations now. Okay, I have a motion properly seconded for 195 preliminary rate. Doesn't mean I always want to say this to the public. Doesn't mean that's what we're going to adopt. We could go back to 185. We could go back to 175. Could be something in between. Any last comments or questions? We could also, what is our timeline here, Dallas? Do we have to have the preliminary tonight? Can we wait till we have a full person board here?
Mr. Mayor, before I answer that question, one comment is the commission does offer a hardship assistance program for any residents who cannot pay the fire assessment. Not been a very popular program, but we do offer that program for anybody who does have an issue. There's a big caveat with if we cannot pass this tonight, because I do need to double check with our consultants. I believe that the commission could push this to the 26th, as our next requirement is August 2nd. It would put a little bit of squeeze on staff to do the things we need to do, but pushing it to the 26th should meet all of our timeline requirements. And first thing in the morning, I'll double check with our consultant to make sure we don't need to call a special meeting in order to make any other timelines I'm not aware of.
Okay, so preferable to get a preliminary rate set tonight that we could adjust later. But I would appreciate if we could just tell us ahead of time so we don't kill the vote, because a 2-2 puts us in a different parliamentary spot than just tabling it until we have a 5-person board. So that's really you, Commissioner Maison.
Oh, you were looking at me this whole time?
I need a head nod from you whether you're okay.
Let's go.
Okay. Any other questions on the preliminary rate?
I got a comment.
Commissioner Coleman.
I can remember, what's it been, Mike, maybe 2 years ago or something, we ended up going down with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we went high, came in low. So
And
you can't, like Dallas has said, but you can't. And I guess this is more directed to the new commissioner, is that once you sit, you can't go up. So that's why let's do this now. At least we're safe.
And Mr. Mayor, to Commissioner Coleman's point, we do the same thing with the preliminary millage rate. Or we have. I'm not saying you have to, but every year the commission gives itself some wiggle room in case we have a big storm that causes, $1 million worth of damage to Newberry. They're not locked into something. Those are outside, but it gives themselves wiggle room. And every time They've come in with the prior year's millage rate. We've never gone to the top end rate that was initially approved.
Okay, any last comments or questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
Mr. Attorney, I think originally the ordinance says that we can't increase the fire assessment rate more than $20 or $25 a year. Is that correct, sir?
Good memory. That's good memory, yeah. I don't think it's binding. I don't think that provision is binding, but yes, it did say that.
Mr. Mayor, there, at your last assessment, the city commission did adopt a cap that you cannot go higher than $225. So if you ever reach that cap, you'd have to re-adopt your ordinances. We had to redo the assessment and then re-adopt your ordinances.
And for a redone assessment, do we have to go back through the service?
Yes,
To
sir.
validate the numbers? Because the difference in the numbers, when we did this, I don't know, early 2000s or 90s, a lot less population, still roughly same cost, so fewer people had to bear. You know, now we have a lot more population, so we can spread the cost over a little bit. You know,
Part of the assessment is they look at your call load, so they see who's demanding your services. So as Newberry grows with more commercial, the next time we do assessments, it would probably be likely that our commercial and industrial section will pick up more of the cost than our residential, because there will be more of them to make those calls for service.
Do we have any plans on redoing?
we did it not too long ago.
Few years
Was it
ago.
8 years, 7 years ago?
It wasn't,
been
it was a couple of years ago.
3 or 4.
Only 2 or 3.
Yeah. It was in the recent I'd have to go double check, but
You're
we're
right,
not
yeah.
we're not at a time to
You were
redo them.
here.
I was here.
You were here,
It was
so-
controversial, just the
$15,000
$15,000 to
To do the
perform
study.
the assessment was pretty controversial.
Mr. Mayor, we redid the assessment in 2018.
Okay.
You've been here a long time.
Other comments, questions? All right, roll call vote, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Farnsworth. Commissioner Mazon. Motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Farnsworth in dissent, and that takes us to item number 23, which is voting delegate, which I think I dropped the ball. Maybe, Mike, you picked up on. I was supposed to find one of these guys who's going and doesn't mind being the voter. Commissioner Clark, are you going to the Florida League of Cities Conference this year?
I nominate Commissioner Clark.
Okay, I have a motion, probably second on the floor. Commissioner Clark will be our voting delegate at the 95th Annual Florida League of Cities Conference. Okay, any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public have any comments or questions? Here none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously, and might it be the,
Mr. Mayor, I know that everybody would be a little disappointed that they're not going to be the voting delegate, but we do have an opportunity for other elected officials to attend the conference.
and you should
Which-
go if you can.
It's a good conference, and it's in Orlando, which is close to home. It's August 12th through 14th. If you'd like to attend, let us know. We'll make all the accommodations for you and get you that information.
Take the
Um,
family. There's a pool.
Mr. Mayor, I have a few comments. One,
Okay.
Mr. Ross, who spoke at announcements in the middle of the meeting, had a meeting with him between meetings, or during this meeting when I had some free time. And I think we've reached resolution. I don't think he's going to have an event that's open to the public where they're charging admission. He has made an investment in some seafood, and so he is going to have some family at his place to help him eat some seafood. So crisis averted. He said he appreciated staff informing him, and that if in the future he plans an event where they might invite the public like that, he understands the processes and will be happy to get with us early so that we can get approval for a temporary use permit.
Mike, before you move on and comments, because I understand why the Ross family didn't want to wait till 10:15 to have this conversation. But I do also want to say why I understand why staff reached out to them, because if you saw the social media advertisement, it did not say a 50-person family reunion. It said the first annual. There was a cost to enter. There was music, and I mean, it looked like the same kind of a carnival-esque type event. So I'm glad there is a resolution. I'm glad that was different, but I want to make sure that you hear me say publicly, I appreciate staff reaching out and having those conversations and saying, look, if you're having a big event where you're charging admittance and you have live music, you know, these are exactly the kinds of situations where you get a permit from. And so there was a little bit different advertisement from what we heard here tonight. So I don't think anybody up here has a problem with a 50 to 70 person family reunion happening on your private property, but a live event where you charge a ticket and you have live music, clearly worth having a conversation saying it sounds like something you need a permit for. But I'm glad that crisis is averted and everybody can eat seafood, because I mean, if it's the last time to get, was it crawfish?
Crawfish.
Yeah, I might have to. What was that date? I might have to go out there and get it late. Yeah. He's gonna buy 2 plates too.
Mr. Mayor, we had a really big agenda tonight, and I appreciate the commission's patience. We missed one of our regular meetings where we would have had about half of these items, and we have had a lot of planning items for the last year. As you all know, I think Brian did a report, Brian and Wendy, on how many items they had considered. But staff hears you when we say move development process as smooth as it can be. Staff hears you and tries to move these things along. Speaking of a lot going on, this commission has a lot going on. We have a lot of workshops slated for the next few weeks. Beginning tomorrow night, we're going to have a budget workshop where we'll be talking about our governmental funds, which includes general fund, fire department, those types of things. That's tomorrow beginning at 7. And then we had one scheduled for Thursday of this week on City Hall. Expansion, we have postponed that to Tuesday, July the 27th. You all got a text from me about it, and now it's on your calendars. Then the following Tuesday, on August the 6th, we'll have one on enterprise funds or proprietary funds. We'll talk about utilities, utility projects, and utility rates. And then we have the final workshop in August. There's still a couple in September related to budget, but the final workshop in August has to do with our visioning process that we've been going through. So we've done a couple public forums. I think you've all been interviewed for maybe a 2-hour interview. Next step is a workshop, likely held either at the municipal building or at Easton again, trying to create an informal atmosphere, generate a lot of discussion, but it is a workshop for the commission. And we have 2 proposed dates. Both are Saturdays. So one is Saturday, August the 7th. The other is Saturday, August the 28th. Don't have to answer now, but we'd like to get some feedback this week. And if you know now that one date is better than the other, we'll take it, because we need to get with our consultant and get her booked. Saturday, August 7th, Saturday, August 28th. Public forum, it'll be a workshop setting, but it just won't be in this meeting room. Okay. Understand. But we'll try to lock that down this week as soon as possible, so you may be seeing an email from me, Amy, or Dallas tomorrow asking you again to look at your calendars. Mr. Mayor, I'd like the commission to be aware I'll be out of town on city business next week from Tuesday through Thursday, attending the FMEA FMPA conference. It's postponed last year, so it's been a while, but we'll get back together and see what's happening in the world of public power. And then finally, and we will transmit a report to the commission, but the state legislature approved legislation that was signed into law by Governor DeSantis that requires us to amend our comp plan and add an additional element. If you remember, there's 10 or 12 elements now, so we're adding one that seeks to protect private property rights. Probably a good idea. However, didn't give us a lot of wiggle room. The law reads that we can't process any more comp plan amendments until this element has been approved and submitted. So we have projects that are in the queue right now. that are just gonna come to a screeching halt while we try to put together a comp plan amendment to get it sent off to the state for approval. The state has indicated that they think they'll get quick turnarounds on this, but there are 416 cities and 67 counties that are all going to be meeting the same requirements, trying to get their, I presume many of them are going to be like us. I want to get them done processed as quickly as possible. So I wanted y'all to be aware that you know, sometimes state legislature says you got to get this stuff done within 2 years. Sometimes they say you can't do another thing until you get this approved, and that's the way this law came out. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney? Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
I don't have anything.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Farnsworth?
Can any of that, COVID money be used to buy the Quint?
We're going to have that conversation tomorrow night. If I can just ask you to hold on for about 24 hours, we'll answer that question for you.
Will do.
Commissioner Mason?
Thank you for service, guys. Thank you for service.
I just have a couple, Mayor Conrad, who has been serving on our P&Z board since he stepped down from the dais, announced that tonight was his last night on the P&Z. He's moved, and he sold his house. His house sold much quicker than he thought, and since he no longer lives in his district that he's serving, he can't serve on the P&Z, so he is resigning that position, which means that we need to advertise and find a replacement. So you guys will be voting on a replacement. The way we've done that in the past is we advertise, we get applicants. You guys kind of rank your applicants, 1, 2, 3, however many we get, you know, and then we tally up, you know, low score, high score, however we decide to rank it. I would ask staff that we work a little, we figure out some way to try to get to some new folks, to include some new people onto the board. The P&Z most of the applicants have been kind of the same folks for a long time, and we just kind of recycle them, you know. I think it would be good to get a new voice on there and include some more folks. So if you have somebody who shares your vision, that's the first foremost thing I want us to start to think about, is, you know, reaching out to people who see the world the way you see it. That because the P&Z gives recommendations to you guys. They should reflect your values. They should reflect what you are trying to accomplish up here. So if you know of somebody who shares your vision you think would be good, reach out to them and ask them to look for those emails, and let's see if we can, you know, encourage some participation among the community in that seat. And I'm not sure if that's the only seat. Maybe Amy knows off the top of her head, but usually P&Z seats go with your elections. But right now we're going to have that one come up. You know, I just wanted publicly, we all did at the P&Z, but Mayor Conrad has certainly gave a decade of his life on the dais as elected official. He served the last 3 years or so on the P&Z. He's been a great public servant for us. He's dedicated a lot of his life. And as you know, he was also, I'm not sure the title, but he was our FMPA liaison, where he continued to serve and make sure that we were getting the best value out of FMPA. And so we need to think about that role as well. And certainly Mike's involvement with FMPA should help us figure out somebody who can serve in that capacity. So that's it for my comments tonight. Any questions about any of those things? Public comment. Have any members of the public who would like to make a comment? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Wow, way to plow through 25 agenda items, because man, that's a power meeting.
It was.
Well done,
A
Scott.
lot of work got done. That's a good job, all. Good job, team. Good job. All right, guys.
He's voted no every time. He never voted yes.
I know. No, I'm the same way. Did I read it?
usually send you an email, but this Sunday, so you didn't get one. But you know,
Have a great one.
that's why she went in the house. I'm sorry, I started like circling. Why did you say? Okay.
Or should, right?
Quick, as possible.
All right, Scott's not left
You haven't
yet, right?
received that letter from the state authority yet, right? I think, whenever I read on this part, I think you not have it. You missed this one, July. Oh, how come you haven't taken that for the statute? You can text me if you need to. And automatic 25 and then removal of office can happen after that. So I think that they're doing due diligence, that they are due July 1. But I think that the state's going to have to notify them. Okay, this is good. So, you know, I've been back and that was
They're on the side over there.
I wanted to talk to him. But I think I look at the elevation thing. But, you know, the instructions are there, remember? I mean, you're
Yep, you can keep going.
going.
You can keep, that's what I was asking.
Familiar. Just don't forget to mark the little boxes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right.
I know you're tired. Don't.
Maybe I'll see you tomorrow night, and then on Wednesday.
We got Wednesday night at, 7.
Wednesday's at 4. Tomorrow is at 7.
Everybody
goes.
Wednesday's at 4, Lure Schoolhouse.
Budget's
And
here,
then
or
you
we're
have
gonna be next door.
here at 7. Budget is.
This always
We don't have a meeting though at 4, right, Amy?
Do what?
We don't have a meeting at 4. It's not.
No, that's.
Okay.
Mr. All right, why did we lose this? We lost it.
We've always done that, you know, y'all want me to change it, we need to vote on it.
I've lost the paper.
If you want to sign just the last page.
That's what I'm doing. Right, that's was exactly what I'm doing.
195.
All right, all right, now wait a minute.
190. Oh, that was pretty good. I was like $10. Cool.
Yeah, can I have a sticky note? This is one of the stickers. Scott? Oh, no, this is exhibit B. This doesn't get signed, this is an exhibit. Ordinance 2113, is that 2113? Yeah.
Okay, I've got to go turn my computer off.
And that means I just need exhibit A, so I need to find exhibit A.
That went well.
There's exhibit A, there's exhibit B, and I'll make sure there's not an exhibit C, so perfect. There you go, and you've already signed it.
Thank you very much.
Sarah, you're awesome today, thank you for helping getting all these together. I printed and she was labeling and paper. She was. It was called teamwork today because that is what the P and Z, we was working too much too many people.
Too many meetings in one day, right?
Yeah, well, I was up in Janine, so, because I was up in her, then, yeah, but that was why I was processed there. We had to make sure that we had what we were doing. Okay, and this one, yes, this one's ready. And then what I'll have to do tomorrow is just go through and make sure I haven't missed them. But I'm not gonna do it tonight because really just, right, that's what I figured. Oh, here, yep, just one of these. And I don't know if it's got it inside.
No, I like the ones, different ones.